This is the Reverie Roundtable. Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern. Got an amazing group of individuals with us. Start by introducing them. Hello, Johnny Scarlett. How are you doing today?
Hello, how are you? I'm doing just fine. Hi chat, my name is Johnny, and I have a big announcement. I'm super glad that Prime invited me to this panel because I'm changing my stream schedule. I now stream politics, philosophy, math, science, and art on Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 10 a.m. Central Time. And I would love for you to join me. So peace. Thanks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, everyone, go check out Johnny Scarlett channel and be part of that. Sounds like a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Johnny, for being here. Really appreciate it. And like the hair, the hair is looking really nice.
Thank you.
Hey. Next, we have someone I'm always very excited to have, Riverboat Jack. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing great. Watched some anime today, so I'm feeling pumped. Yeah, people can follow me over on the twitch.tv/riverboatjack, where I talk about socialist politics, or I guess I just become a full-time panelist now because I've been on panels for like the past 5 days. Um,
Huzzah! All right. Thank
but I
you.
love yours is my favorite panel. Okay,
Of
don't
course.
don't let anyone lie to you. Okay.
I won't. I won't. I didn't
She
think
doesn't say
otherwise.
that to everyone. She doesn't say that every time she's on a panel either.
True. It's
I'm
true.
certain. I'm certain. Thank you for being so kind as to subscribe. E Honey Clown and Turtle Alloy. Thank you so much. People who I have not met before, I don't think, but really, thank you for the support. Okay. Next, we have an all-star here. Connor Points. Thank you for being back once again.
Yeah, my sincere pleasure. Thank you for having me. So my name is Connor. My politics are fairly centrist. I think that's at least a fair thing to say politically. Um, and basically, I do like going after what I view as true, getting into yelling matches with people about what's going on. And if you want to follow me, the easiest way to do so is to follow me on Twitter at ConnorPoints, CONORPOINTS, CONORPOINTS. Or alternatively, just go into YouTube, type in counterpoints, common spelling, and you'll actually find me. I'm the top channel out there. I'm a former Marine, former law enforcement officer, so I do talk disproportionately about violence and police reform and geopolitics and history. So if you're into that kind of stuff, then come on over and we'll have a good time.
Thanks so much for being here, and thank you, Chase, for being so kind as to start a hype train by gifting a Hot Tier 1 gift sub to once again Baby Gravy. Really appreciate that. um, God, I don't know what to say about that username, but thank you so much, and thank you to my friend Shower. Shout out to my friend Shower who happens to be in chat. Love you, Shower. Yeah, we have a hype train going on, so if you guys can help us out with that, that's great. If not, it's okay. We'll do it again later. Oh, well, thank you, Pavardi, for gifting 5 Hot Tier 1 gift subs to the channel. Holy crap, that's really, really kind of you, everyone. All right, so we're up to a level 2 hype train. Again, thanks for the support. If you guys will keep that going, it's great, but I can't babysit this like I usually do. But thanks so much. All right, next, we'll go to Rose Wrist. Rose Wrist, thank you so much for stopping by. We really were happy to have you the other day. During our open panel, you made like a really big impression there. So I was definitely wanting to get you on the Reverie.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the kind words. So a little bit about me. My name, I go online by Roserist. I am a Swedish student, political content creator, streamer. Talk about pretty much anything politics related, really. Some things about the current state of me right now. It is 1 a.m. I had a wonderful nap before. I woke up and chose rhetorical violence in preparation for this panel, and I'm ready to go. Very excited. If you want to find me on any other platforms, the best place would probably be YouTube. That's where I have most of my content. You can find me there under Rose Wrist, just Rose and then space in between, whatever, Wrist. And there you go. You can find all my wonderful videos right there. Thank you very much for having me, Prime.
Okay, thanks, so. Thank you to Iram for gifting a sub, and thank you to Kittens Gamer for being so kind and gifting 5. Everyone's being super kind today. Holy crap! I don't know why. And then thank you, Spear, for gifting another gift sub. We're on level 3 hype train. If we can keep that going, I very much appreciate it. Now we have to say thanks to our Dark Lord for stopping by, DB. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Doobie. I help run the politics server on Discord, discord.gg/politics or politics.gg, links to the top of my screen. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, thank you. All right, thank you, SA, for gifting another 5 hot tier 1 gift subs to the channel. We're halfway down that level 3 hype train, but keep that support, please. Really been enjoying. Thank you, and then 180 bits from Jace. And oh wow, why are people being so nice today? Thank you, Nirvana, for gifting a sub. Serenity Captain. Where are all these new people coming from? Thanks to you so much. And yeah, I think that's everyone there. But I think we're on level 4 hype train. Oh wow, this is really kind. Thank you so much, everyone. Next, we'll go to Eris. Eris. How are you doing today? Eris, one of our producers here on the channel, helps with Amazon Lily, which will be tomorrow. Eris, thank you for being here.
Hey, Eris. I run Calliopean Club. I am also a history grad student, so I like bringing historical perspective to modern issues. I love learning and interesting ideas and dealing with them in an open-minded and like charitable way. I also stream. I just started streaming last week, but I stream 5 times a week. Twice a week, I do Eris Talks, where I interview someone with unique and special stories, and I just want to learn more about and highlight their experiences. I love finding out how the personal connects to the political, since we often try to separate those two, but it's pretty challenging. This Wednesday in particular, I'll be interviewing Demon Mama. So I'm so pumped about that, especially to see her from a more compassionate perspective and to find out really who she is behind that debate exterior. So yeah, you should follow me on Twitch, where you'll get to see me having these chats, and which is, I actually finally changed my name, so it's Aristocracy TV. So just twitch.com/aristocracy TV, and yeah, thanks for having me here, Prime.
Okay, thank you. We should probably change your name here on Discord to make it easier for people to find you.
Oh yeah, I'll change that right now.
Yeah. But thanks so much. Next we have Maddie. Maddie, thanks for making it here. How you doing, Maddie?
Thanks. I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Maddie Cakes _. You can find all my streams on twitch.tv/Maddie Cakes _. I am also extremely on Twitter. And my name there is Mads Maru. That's spelled MADSMARU. So, I mean, if you want me to be like shit posting online or like verbally shit posting, best of both worlds. And I'm really happy to be here.
Thanks so much. And we are 30% into that level 4 hype train. Yeah, if we could continue on, we're like almost done. If anyone could help us out, we have 2 minutes left on the hype train. Please help us out. And thank you again to my friend Shower, who's been literally cheerleading this entire hype train. I see you out there, Shower. Thank you so much for being so kind, for cheerleading all this. And then thank you for another 5 hot tier 1 gifts of some Techno Kittens Gamer, 50% there to level 5. Holy crap! Thank you so much. Okay, I'm noticing this is the least amount of men we've ever had on the channel, on the Reverie. Thank you to my good friend Spectre for being so kind as to arrange things like this. It's really a good mix. It's the most even mix we've ever had. Next, Wicked Supreme. Wicked Supreme, please apologize for being our man.
I'm sorry. My deepest regrets. Okay, I made the wrong choice at birth. I'm here because I heard that there was going to be cartoon scum on this panel. So I'm here to advance my political philosophy as anti-cartoonism. Listen, we've got an immigration problem on Twitch, okay? More and more cartoons are showing up every single day. We're not equipped to handle it. I'm here to advance my political movement. It's called Cartoon Lives Don't Matter. That's right. Cartoon Lives Don't Matter. No. Okay? We are a highly hierarchical structure because I'm a fascist bootlicker. I've promoted myself to general. So I'm here to fight the cartoon scourge directly. Okay, this is a direct confrontation. That's what I'm here for. If you guys want my Twitch channel, it's Twitch TV/Wicked Supreme. We like to fuck around and have a good time, make a lot of jokes, and maybe learn a thing or two along the way. That's me.
Okay. Thank you so much. I like the dark turn you've taken. Now you've earned that wicked part of your name. Good work.
Always has been.
No, I can't believe that you allow this cartoon phobia on your channel, Prime. I don't know. I'm feeling a little hurt right now.
Problematic
It's very
platforming.
painful.
Yeah, I'm known for it apparently.
It's okay. I've watched enough cartoons to know that you guys can take like a giant cartoon anvil to the face. It's fine.
Just
Right.
really quickly.
Right. And we've
just really quickly. Thank you so much, Leah, our local monster, for being so kind as to give 25 hot tier 1 gift subs to the channel, completing the hype train. Thank you all so much for the very strong support at the very top of the show. Amazing. And again, thank you to my friend Shower. And please go visit her channel. I'll shout her out here. Who was so kind to cheerlead this entire fucking hype train for me while I was quite busy. Shower's amazing. I love her. Thanks so much. Okay, moving forward. Thanks for being here. Does anyone else want a meme, or are we ready to go? Are we good? Are we good?
Ready to go.
All right, we're good. All right, moving forward. If my computer will stop freaking out on me, that'd be great. All right, topic 1. There has been a huge surge of migrants seeking refuge at the U.S. southern border. The Biden administration has made it clear that while they will provide a more humane processing procedure, the U.S. still remains closed to undocumented immigration. Should this policy change? Should the U.S. drastically increase the amount of undocumented immigrants that are allowed to seek asylum from extreme violence and other circumstances? Can the U.S. afford to absorb these individuals during our current COVID crisis? All right. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll start with Johnny.
Okay, so I found out a few really interesting statistics while I was doing some research for this. One is that there is an organization called the Lutheran Immigration Health Facility, I believe is what it's called. They pay approximately $50 per day per family to house immigrants who are waiting on their status to be approved by the United States. And that is opposed to ICE spending approximately $319 per day per person to house them. It's also been found by the Government Accountability Office report that approximately 95% of people who come to the United States and receive what's called full service alternatives to detention, which involves counseling and people who speak their language if they're not a native English speaker. Approximately 95% of those immigrant people return to appear for their final immigration court hearing. That also involves a lot of individualized risk assessment when they come into the country. So apparently it's actually very, very cost effective to actually allow these people to move about the United States freely and find their own housing. Alternatives to detention seem to include a lot of counseling, a lot of, like I said, individualized reports. And that's currently where I stand, so I think I'll go from here.
So much, Riverboat Jack.
Yeah, I mean, first off, maybe I'll tackle it in reverse order. The United States can 100% afford to like deal with and absorb undocumented immigrants. Like this contention that like they're a drain on our economy or our society is totally fabricated. Even in the cases of undocumented immigrants, they add value to their communities, they raise the local wages, they have all kinds of local benefits as well as just national benefits on a wider level. And so I think that, can we afford it? That's a moot question because generally they help us. Now, should the US drastically increase the amount of undocumented immigrants that are allowed to enter to seek asylum? I absolutely think that is the case. I think that we would overwhelmingly benefit in a society that allowed so many people to come in. Yeah, I think it's kind of silly to say that we should just have like closed borders until we can figure out what the heck is going on, because frankly, we don't really need to know that much more. All we really need to do is be able to check these people out. The existing policy that we have that allows people to leave and then come back is more than adequate, I feel, in like again, most cases. So let's just start from there and maybe make it a little bit less punishing for people.
Thanks so much. Next, we are going to Connor.
Yeah, so I finally get to show my Trud credentials over here. No, we take about 1 million people per year. I think it's between 500,000 and 1.5 million people per year. I don't think that I legitimately have basically what amounts to cultural concerns. I don't think liberal democracy or mixed economy capitalism is a universally held belief. I don't think rule of law is a universally held belief. So basically, anybody admitted into the country has to believe those things or want those things for themselves. I think it's weird to just assume that every single person who's coming into your country just believes the fundamental tenets of your own society just by being admitted into the country. I think that's weird as fuck. I have no idea why we assume those things, considering the diverse array of cultures and peoples and languages and economic beliefs across the fucking universe. I am completely interested in perpetuating the civic nationalist project that is the United States. I don't give a fuck about the melanin content of somebody's skin. I don't give a fuck about the country that they come from. I don't give a fuck about their race. I don't give a shit about any of that stuff. But what I do care about is a happy, healthy, successful, stable society. And what I would also be interested in is there's something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Basically, the first 3 tiers are food, security, and social order. If you look at Central and South America, none of those needs are being met, which is why we basically have a constant social vacuum coming into the United States. I think that American interventionism has largely held down these countries. I think American interventionism has prohibited their development and their security and their social order. And I would be interested in basically not allowing every single person from a failed state to come to the United States, but instead to create non-failed states in the Americas through soft power and hard power. And I'm sure we'll get into it in a second, but with that, I'll yield.
Okay. Next, Rosewis.
Yep. I'm going to start off with a bit of a pretentious quote here. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Given the resources of the United States of America and the sort of global responsibility that it takes on, it is, to me personally, a no-brainer that the United States of America should accept more asylum seekers and undocumented immigrants within its borders. Given the vast amount of resources they have, given things that was presented by, for example, Johnny Scarlett before, it to me seems like an absolutely no-brainer. A person that comes from beyond the borders of the United States of America is just as much worth morally as somebody within the borders of the United States of America in regards to how much we should be willing to spend resources on that person. When it comes to the statistics of this, especially, given the context of the United States, because obviously research differs based on location. Immigration seems to be pretty much a uniform good for the United States of America. The only one negative thing that we see is typically in certain industries of low skill labor, certain US-born high school dropouts suffer. However, due to the economic productivity generated by immigration as a whole, that generates extra economic revenue, which can be used to fund, for example, programs to take care of these high school dropouts as a result of being able to take in these immigrants. So even then, the government can take policies to remedy some of the losses taken, some of the very small losses taken through immigration overall. Now, a tiny bit of rebuttal on what this counterpoint said just there, quickly. Arguments surrounding culture and stuff like that are, to me, fairly, fall fairly short. A lot of the principles that you talked about there, like a belief in, for example, democracy, is something that, I would bet a large portion of Republicans nowadays don't even hold. And I think that when it comes to being able to, or sort of wishing certain values are present within society when it comes to the people we take in through immigration, things like being able to properly assimilate and integrate immigrants into society is something that the United States can do excellently given its resources. And doing that will prevent the formation of, for example, poor socioeconomic enclaves, which tend to preserve certain, for example, certain values that counterpoints may be worried about.
Wrap it up.
Yep. I'm done.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. I'll keep it brief, but thank you so much, Rosewis. That was actually quite comprehensive. I think Doobie's a little bit busy right this moment, so we'll get back to him. Let's go to Eris.
I just want to preface this that this is not my field, so I am not very educated on this, and I'm open to my mind being changed throughout this panel. So I'm not American, so I'm going to come at it from a Canadian perspective of immigration. So it's always, even though we're examining a particular American issue, I also am an immigrant to Canada. I'm an immigrant from South Africa, so I was not born here either. Though I will say that my family did do it the legal way, but I just in general, I'm economically extremely left wing, and I believe in a welfare state. I believe that that's the right thing to do, and I don't think having a welfare state and basically open borders can work together as long as other nations are not on the same plan, right? And I think that that's something that leftists often ignore and they don't take into consideration. Around in Europe and in Canada, it's not associated. Like being left doesn't automatically mean that you're going to believe in open borders or undocumented immigrants being able to just come in willy-nilly, etc. like that. You usually just want to focus on providing more open avenues for legal immigration. Because then you could control, the demographics to bring in the people that you need. Additionally, and I'm going to bring a little bit of a different perspective that maybe some of you guys haven't thought about. Giving benefits to undocumented immigrants in the United States over people going through the legal immigration system, it naturally will prioritize people from Central and South America and potentially Canada over immigrants from other parts of the world that are arguably just as or potentially more dangerous. So places like Africa or the Middle East, or I don't know, certain like northeastern parts of Asia, they're people from like Assyria and stuff. They have a much larger challenge in coming here undocumented or illegal or whatever term you want to use. So you inevitably end up using those resources for certain demographics over others. And it just makes sense why a community would say, okay, let's prioritize, say, this group and this group, and these people with this amount of education and so for what they need.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I yield me. Sorry.
You yield your time. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Maddie.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Pride.
Yeah. So before I even begin to look at our immigration policy right now, I think it's really important to call out the first time the United States ever instituted any sort of restriction on immigration and why that's important. The first time the United States introduced legislation to restrict immigration was the Chinese Exclusion Act. And it was entirely racially motivated by this white supremacist country of ours. Unfortunately, breaks my heart to say that. But when we think about the rhetoric behind controlling people coming into the country, when we think about the basis upon which we've developed our entire approach to immigration, it is critical to remember where it came from. Because the reality is this: immigrants are just a part of America as any other one of us, and they have always been a vital source culturally. They've always contributed far more to our economy than they would take in terms of welfare. That's supported by data, and that's something that we see just about everywhere in this country. So on that basis, in a perfect world, I don't think that there should be no such thing as illegal immigration. I think that's ridiculous. However, I'm also a realist in that I think the likelihood of implementing that as a policy is very low. So the best thing that we can do is develop a compassionate system, because we already have the tools and systems available to us to track people that come into the country. The goal we should be looking for is, how do we do so in a way that's compassionate, in a way that sets people up to succeed and to become thriving members of our society, and limits the time that they have to spend in that transitional period from coming into the country and then leaving and joining a community. So I think that really is where my focus is, and I think there are a lot of extremely empathetic, compassionate ways to implement it without punishing people for seeking a better life.
All right, Luke Spring.
I've already heard quite a few narratives that I predicted that I was going to hear, that that's immigration is a benefit, is a boon to a country, and it's infinitely recursive. The more immigration, the better it is. I just want to take this time, I guess, on this panel to posit some of the actual obstacles and actual challenges to realizing that because they exist. And I think I'd just like to poke holes in a lot of arguments because I predict that I'm going to hear quite a few of these sort of, I would call them signaling virtue without, sort of cart before the horse, right? Putting the cart before the horse. The horse would be, what are the actual obstacles to realizing the things that we want to see, and why are we putting the cart before it? The cart in this case is that more immigration equals good, so we need to just allow it ad infinitum or something like that.
Doobie, if you're there, might not be there. Okay. We'll get back to Doobie. He's has a personal thing happening. But we'll get back to Doobie. All right. So we can jump at it.
Okay. I mean, first off, to Connor's point, I'm not sure how often does like the average American citizen actually think about like the concept of rule of law. What do you mean by that? Like, do
Okay.
people like just believe that laws exist? Because I would hazard a guess that most immigrants believe that laws exist too.
Okay. Yeah. So no, I'll try to address this head on. So no, I fundamentally disagree. Okay, there's a difference in approach when it comes to the way that people live in different societies. So like this is the thing. So often I don't really give a shit if people need to accuse me of bigotry or unsub or whatever. That's totally fine. But basically, I am not critical of other societies or other cultures due to a lack of exposure. I'm critical of other societies and other cultures due to exposure. So, for instance, even if you were talking about how to obey traffic laws or whether or not traffic laws are obeyed, whether or not police are expected to be corrupt, whether or not people take bribes. Now, we can talk about the material conditions, and I'm sure that like there's plenty to do in reference to the material conditions. But at the same time, what we're talking about is social expectation and cultural expectation. And basically, I think that we have pretty good cultural expectations inside the United States. If a cop pulled you over and there was a $120 ticket that he could give you, and you try to offer him a $20 bill inside the United States, you're going to fucking jail. If you do the same thing in fucking Mexico, you're basically going to leave without the ticket because the cop is going to take the $20 bill and he's going to stick it inside his pocket. Now, maybe that's poverty, okay? And maybe we need to address the material conditions of fucking Mexico that's incentivizing bribery as a norm. But I would actually be really interested. Give me 1 second. I would be really interested in what Supreme has to say about putting the cart before the horse, because basically what I'm hearing is immigration good ad infinitum. No matter how many people we take or how quickly we take them, it's always going to be good. And that's so mind-bogglingly like childish to me that I'm actually like a little bit frustrated. So effectively, we need to talk about numbers. We take between 500,000 and 1.5 million people per year from South and Central America. Let's just go ahead and say that we double that. That means within a century, we will effectively have doubled the population of the United States. Are you telling me that doubling the population of the United States within a century isn't going to have severe and drastic cultural impacts on what happens inside the United States, and that all of them are going to be positive? I'll yield in a second. So basically, like right now, English is the lingua franca of America. When 2/3 to 80% of America is made up of Hispanic and Central and South American immigrants, why the fuck would English be the lingua franca? Why wouldn't it be Spanish? There's so many cultural things that happen when you do things too fast that I have no idea what the fuck this is even like. It feels childish.
I'm gonna let Johnny.
I would really like to push back 1 second, and I'd like to say that there is a definite, not insignificant amount of data that suggests that we actually have inflated immigration numbers because so many people attempt to cross the border more than once. In fact, that's a large portion of people try to cross the border multiple times a year. And so we do technically have inflated immigration numbers. Now, am I going to sit here and say, Connor, that you're wrong and that immigration truly is just incredibly, infinitely successful? No, I'm not. I'm not going to say that we need completely open borders. What I'm actually advocating for is just compassionate alternatives to keep people in detention centers and with electric bracelets on their ankles.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think another. Oh, sorry.
No, I want to get Supreme a chance to respond because he was specifically called out. But then we'll get back to the rest of you. And Rose, we'll go to you. You've been having your hand up.
Well, there are just a lot of challenges that I want people who hold the position that infinite immigration equals infinite growth to consider. On the one hand, I think it is largely agreed upon by economists that immigration does tend to contribute to an economic boon. It just contributes to our labor force. It ends up that most people who are immigrants, like the level of education and sorts of profile of jobs that are done by immigrants tends to look like that. You know what I mean? Like a parabola. It tends to be that people who are immigrants tend to hold more per capita, like low skill labor and high skill labor jobs. Whether that comes specifically from the southern border is subject to question. But aside from that, just a large influx of any group of people. Like now, we have the largest influx of people trying to cross the U.S.-Mexico border than ever before. So what happens if we don't have the resources to process all those people and either admit them or turn them away? Those people still have to live on a day-to-day basis, and those places at the border we have to do civil engineering, right? Like civil engineering projects have to be drawn up to even facilitate for human life to exist in a place. There needs to be a diversion of fresh water sources or desalination or what have you to allow for fresh water to get to these people. There needs to be shelters constructed. There needs to be infrastructure in place in terms of food and stuff. And if large populations of people suddenly just show up there, it's very likely that a large group of those people will die. And so it requires a lot of resources. In this case, it would take money, and states and cities have to work within their own budgets. It would have to come from the federal government. And then, therein lies a question of how much of our federal funds that come from taxation of like citizens and residents alike ought to be, privy to people that are just showing up at the border unannounced, that aren't following due process. And aside from that, like the economic boon that's provided by immigration is also there's often a lot of friction. There's often like a timetable there. A lot of the people that are coming from the southern border, they come with larger families than the average American. So often more children than adults. And what happens there? Children are in school, they're in training for a long time. They tend to be leeches on public programs and public funding, and they're not able to sort of start to pay off their debt and become an economic boon to this country for sometimes multiple decades. So there's a lot of friction there that may end up like collapsing a lot of these places where people want to live. And so that's what requires a measured response, and like why we have quotas and stuff.
So let's go to Rose Wrist, if you can respond to our resident neoconservative Wicked Supreme, and then we'll go to Jack and Maddie.
Yeah, so number one, I'm not sure. Maybe my headphones just bugged out, but I don't remember hearing anyone ever argue for infinite immigration. I believe that the arguments made by most people on the panel was that, at the very minimum, we can take in more than we have right now, even if we work with, for example, Counterpoints, who is obviously, more on your side when it comes to this discussion, and take his example of doubling immigration to 3 million. That would still only be like a 1% increase a year, which, relative to a lot of other countries is still, not that high of a number. And the things you mentioned about, for example, like economic overloading through a bunch of kids and stuff like that, that's just not economically substantiated, especially not the levels we're seeing today. And I would be willing to bet that they wouldn't be substantiated with, like a reasonable increase, which I don't think anyone's here arguing for, like taking in like tens or like hundreds of millions of people and immigrants, or maybe they are. I don't know. They can feel free to correct me afterwards. Now on to some of the things that Counterpoint said. When you characterized the impact of immigrants on society, you mentioned two things. You mentioned, number one, criminal activity, and number two, their propensity to believe certain concepts that we hold, or that I'm not American, but that Americans hold really, like dear to their constitution or their, like civil government and civil structures. So both of these kind of, go in the face of the data we have on the behavior of immigrants within the United States of America. When it comes to criminal behavior, we see that immigrants commit less crime per capita than the native born population. When it comes to the holding of like American values, we see that immigrants disproportionately vote for Democrats, which I would argue represent the American values far better than Republicans do. So those are the few things. And one more thing on what Counterpoint said when he talked about like a doubling of the U.S. population within 100 years if we double the levels. Beyond, the fact that those numbers may be a bit iffy, there's also the fact that that you're extrapolating, like current trends right now into the future, like a current doubling right now, what effect that might have. You might have very different conditions in regards to what the state of these nations are like, and the need for immigration that will depend heavily on how big actors like the United States decide to handle, for example, climate change and stuff like that. So making these really like long-term, I guess, prescriptions or descriptions as for what America is going to look like is pretty challenging. And there's a lot of like issues that people could point out with that. But I'm going to yield the floor because I've been talking for a while.
Okay, Jack, and then Maddie.
Yeah, to Supreme's point, real quick, it is true that if you allow like a huge surge in like asylum seekers or immigrants, there is a upfront costs. There are upfront costs associated with that. That's very true. However, over time, those upfront costs tend to be paid for because over time, these people get integrated into wider society. They get jobs, they become productive, their kids make it through education, get jobs, become productive in American society, pay taxes. And I think that overall, like if you're just talking about like, oh my gosh, within 5 years, it's going to take an enormous amount of investment. That's true, but we're going to get that investment back over time. And you can look at, for example, what happened in Germany when Germany started taking in asylum seekers from Syria, and they like exploded how many people they were taking into their country, and they expected like as of 2019 to have that fully like basically net zeroed and start reaping the benefits of that starting in 2021 this year. And so that was probably thrown off a bit by COVID, like everything was. But overall, I think we would have a massive benefit over the long term by allowing more refugees in. And to kind of Rose's point, like it's also kind of a fallacy to just assume that like we're doubling forever until we have an infinite number of a finite group of people. Like that's not how that works. And so I think we need to like put this into like a realistic scenario and realize that allowing people into the country does have costs, but it has enormous benefits in the long term. And frankly, I think we shouldn't be afraid of those long-term benefits because let's be real, most people who are here in this room who are American, we're descended from immigrants who came over a border that probably wasn't enforced by Border Patrol.
Well, illegal immigrants, right? And how did that turn out for the population that was there before?
I thought we were rapist settler colonials, not immigrants. What
Hey,
the
hey,
fuck?
we
you know what?
for sure were, but like,
Hey,
Didn't
some
we
of the things can
genocide
be
all the
good.
people that were here? Like,
Some of the things can be good. The genocide part is bad, you know?
Okay, all
let's-
right.
that's
feel
the
like
great
the
thing
conversation
about
will go best.
history is nuance.
Let's go.
I feel like this conversation will go best if we adhere to our actual positions and try to address each other's actual positions.
Okay.
Want to make that clear?
No, fair enough.
would agree.
Wait, but you started the conversation by saying we were advocating for infinite
Exactly.
immigrants.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what I heard. I think it was Rose.
I'm still hearing that.
Yeah,
I mean, I
believe
said
it was
I-
Rose
in a-
who
in a
made that a
perfect
part of his
world-
opening statement.
In my opening statement, I said in a perfect world, I would love for there to not be such thing as illegal immigration. However, realistically, I recognize that that is not like that proposal has very little chance of being passed. But no one's saying that like that's only how it should be, and how dare you? No one's saying.
Wait. Also, for the clarity of the conversation, Supreme said that I said that in the beginning. I might have. I'm not sure. I do not believe I did. But just to clarify, no, I don't believe in infinite immigration, obviously. I do believe that right now, with the data set we have currently, we can go a pretty long way without seeing negatives in that way. And then once we even begin getting close to that point, the data will reflect that, and then we can have that conversation. But we're nowhere near.
I just want to make sure that I'm my actual positions are being addressed as well, because like I look at chat and it's always kind of like painful to see people start to strawman you based on the positions you've actually taken, and they extrapolate that to positions you haven't taken. So
Don't worry,
Maddie's
Supreme. I'll
turn.
take the heat off of you. I got you.
Let's go to finish. Let's let Maddie finish up. Then we'll go back to Connor.
Yeah. So a few things I wanted to address. The first one I know, so Connor points out like, hey, if we continue at the current rate of immigration from South America, from Central America, that's going to create, a lot of sort of perceived cultural impact, whatever. Here's the thing. A lot of the reason that we are seeing immigrants come from these countries is a direct response to like the turmoil that was created in those countries. And a lot of that turmoil is something that was done because of American imperialism and because of American interests going in, and sometimes getting rid of a democratically elected leader and instituting their own leader that is more friendly to U.S. business interests. So a lot of the unrest and turmoil that we're seeing is directly a response to that. One way we can help address that. So if the problem is we think too many people are coming into our border, one thing we can do is improve our own foreign policy to ensure that we're empowering countries to actually create and invest in their own communities, to generate more of a robust economic system. So that's one thing I think that we can do if we really want to address, like, okay, well, if the issue is we think there are too many people coming in, then let's look at, well, why is that? Not just assuming that it's always going to be at that same frequency. Another thing I want to address is this notion, I think, Supreme, you brought this up, that, it's not just about the work that immigrants contribute into society, but also the other drains on the system. I don't think that the children of immigrants or immigrants themselves getting an education and having to take out loans to get that education is a drain on society. In fact, I believe that that is something that contributes monumentally to our society. And if we're concerned about the kind of debt, I'm not done.
It doesn't matter
And
because
if we're concerned,
you're strawmanning me. You're ascribing me as taking a position I haven't taken.
Don't worry, you will be able to respond immediately afterwards. Okay.
You're gone.
But you are being dishonest.
Okay, and and you're talking out of turn. So here's the thing, like, what I'm saying here is this: if we're concerned about the amount of debt that those people are taking out, that is more of a condemnation on the system we use to sack people seeking higher education with debt than it is with immigrants coming in. Because quite frankly, that's an issue that we see prevalent across all populations, especially people who come from lower income households. So, I think the notion that immigrants come here and steal things away or that they're a drain, it's not supported by data. And it's frankly alarming when people try to frame people getting a higher education and then contributing to the economy as a welfare state or drain. It's a little bizarre.
So
I agree with you. And I don't think that immigration is a drain on the United States. I was trying to draw attention to the fact that there's an investment period. It's probably best viewed as an investment period that, for example, specifically like young people from ages 0 to like until they become
leeches.
You call them leeches.
I think I use the term like when they're in education and training or something, that they end up using more resources, leeching more resources off the system until they're able to pay that back. It's an investment period. And that the idea that infinite immigration means infinite growth, if you don't consider that investment period, it can reach like a tipping point where it becomes communities become unsustainable and they can topple over and then end up becoming abandoned. And it just leads to more strife and more migration and more friction and stuff like that. So I'll let you guys know what I'm most interested in. I'm most interested in preserving and promoting the quality of life for as many people as possible. And there are a lot of challenges to, if we're concerned about the United States ruining the sovereignty and the quality of life in Central America, just accepting, like everybody, like most of the immigration that comes from Central America to the United States is in search for economic opportunity. But this comes to the detriment of those host countries. If a bunch of labor resources leave Guatemala, that's bad for Guatemala. They draw out budgets for their own social programs based on projections for their population and their population growth. And if large swaths of those population leave, then suddenly those budgets, they become unsustainable and those countries go into debt. I think the best thing to do would be to try to promote better trade agreements with those programs to make those countries, to sort of bleed out our economy to those countries and make them, a more preferable place to live. So that people are not enticed to leave and like cause those countries to go into massive debt.
So Maddie,
can we agree not to say the phrase infinite immigration ever again in this discussion?
So Maddie, you can.
No, I'm about to say it.
You can quickly respond. I got to go to Connor, Eris, Johnny, and then Rose.
I promise I'll be quick. I totally agree with you with that. I think creating a more equitable trade policy that empowers those countries, because a lot of these countries in reality are rich with natural resources. But that's part of the issue, is that U.S. business interests also know that those countries are rich with natural resources and thus want to exploit the labor of those in those local communities and then export all of the wealth that's generated from those countries out into the United States. And so I think that certainly addresses the long-term issue of people, leaving en masse. However, that doesn't do a whole lot for people that are still, have their lives at risk if they were to stay there. So I think it needs to be twofold. Otherwise, we're leaving so many people out in the cold, and quite frankly, we do have the resources to support them right now. But longer term, I agree. A lot of it is going to be doing something at the economic level, at the trade level, and that's going to make a massive difference.
Connor.
All right, cool. You guys have given me a lot to deal with. All right. Anyways, so I'm going to say infinite immigration again, okay? And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I love pissing off Rose. That's number one. Number two is because we're not just talking about Central and South America, are we? We're talking about the entire planet, because as much as America is a racist, sexist, bigoted, homophobic, transphobic, shitty, white-dominated society, everybody wants to fucking be here, okay? So that means that as shitty as we are, everybody and their fucking mom wants to come here. So we're not just talking about Central and South America. We're also talking about East Asia. We're also talking about Central Asia. We're also talking about North Africa. We're also talking about South Africa. And no offense, but I think we will be able to find 3 million people who want to come to the United States of America for the next century, regardless of how shitty this country is. Because we do have cool history. We do have cool art. We do have good, maybe not good social programs, but we do have a good economy. And I don't see any of that coming in the next century. So yeah, I'm going to use infinite fucking immigration, because we will always be able to find 3 million people per year who want to come to this fucking country. And you guys saying that that's not possible, I think is dishonest.
But then
Anyways,
that would be 3
less crime.
million
Hold
people.
on. That was like 0.1 of 10. All right, less crime per capita.
Wrong.
So hold on, less crime per capita. So less crime per capita. Yeah, you're absolutely fucking right. Illegal immigrants don't commit a disproportionate amount of crimes. They also don't report a disproportionate amount of crimes, which severely drives down the fucking numbers, either as victims or as perpetrators. Do you know why? Because they don't want to get fucking deported. It is very common for Mexican and Central American and South American immigrants who live in shitty communities to get robbed, stabbed, shot, murdered, whatever, and basically for them to not even call the cops because they're being victimized by the society. So while hold on, Prime, this is point 2 of 10.
I'm just curious why a perpetrator report the crime.
So basically, if there's like a inter-immigrant stabbing, they're not going to report the assailant because they don't want him to get deported either.
Yeah, I'm just saying a perpetrator wouldn't themselves. That's what it sounded like.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. But I'm saying even people within the community wouldn't report the perpetrator because they don't want him to get deported either.
Sure.
All right. So perpetuation of American culture, and Democrats represent it better. This triggers the fuck out of me, and I could do a 2-hour rant. I'll try to do it in 60 seconds. So the perpetuation of American culture is important. Basic things like all the concepts that I fucking talk about: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, freedom of speech, limited government, right to self-defense, all that kind of stuff. This is not unique. And by the way, an important part of American culture to me specifically is guns. And who keeps fucking with guns? Democrats. Who keeps voting for Democrats? Immigrants. Now, maybe Republicans should stop being racist and fucking shitty. That's true. Okay. Republicans should stop being fucking assholes. I agree with you there. But at the same time, that doesn't change the fact that the Democrats aren't necessarily interested in perpetuating the values that I care about. I also have some takes on abortion that you probably wouldn't like. All right. I'm going to go ahead. I'll shut the fuck up in the next 30 seconds because I still have 6 points, but I do want to yield it to the panel. All right. I will cede the economic argument. We can stop arguing about economics. Okay. Immigrants are a net boon for the fucking economy.
Awesome.
All right.
Great.
Trigger. I'll leave my other 5 points for my next rant, and with that, I'll just yield back to everybody else.
We will go to Eris, Johnny, Rose, then Doobie afterwards. So Eris, please.
Okay. So, Maddie, I think you made a point earlier about the U.S. That a lot of this has to do with the regions where the U.S. got involved, so there's some responsibility there. So I wanted to push a back against that, because the areas where the U.S. has gone and involved or has some responsibility in the conflict that's led to people wanting to leave those countries, right? Those are primarily in the Middle East, and those people are specifically the demographics that do get discriminated against by these policies, right? Allowing illegal immigration, right, or undocumented immigrants, and not actually having any consequences for that, purposely punish it. It just naturally puts them ahead in line, right, versus the people who are going legally. And again, the majority of Middle Eastern immigrants are trying to do it through legal means, either through refugee status or through visas, etc., right? Anyways, so, but I do agree with you that we should focus on helping those countries. I think Supreme also made the same point. I just think it's so much more rational to focus on helping those countries instead of taking their best, right? And you know, I'm gonna piss people off when I say this, right? But contrary to popular perception, the majority of times, like where the U.S. does intervene in foreign powers, the outcome is a positive one, right? And I will defend that to my dying day. The things that people focus on, right? If you're talking about like American imperialism, like that term, right? The majority of those situations that people are bringing up with the effects of American imperialism are really not the fault of the United States. There are some things that are the fault of American imperialism, right? Like Hawaii and all that stuff, but are actually the fault of the European colonial powers like Britain and France and Spain. And somehow they get, I don't know, like America sometimes often gets the shit for things. And trust me, they deserve a lot of criticism, but that like it's really that these issues really come down to those colonial powers, right? And those are the real problems that have led to this. Okay. And that's probably much more related and they have much more responsibility in the issues that are going on in South America. Yet they're not dealing with the consequences of that. So to me, it makes total sense to try to intervene in these countries on average. And I can defend that, right? Like that, that you can intervene in these countries and you can have positive outcomes. And my last point is that I think Rose mentioned that illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants are largely they vote Democrat, right? But they're actually largely, just on average, they're largely conservative. The United States, from a global perspective, is actually very, very progressive, right? I know that's surprising, right? It's largely progressive. So just when things comes to things like gay rights, economy, lots of stuff like that. So as the only reason why they're not voting for Republicans, I mean, anyone who comes from an immigrant family knows that this is true. That the thing that's keeping them from voting for Republicans, right, is because they think the Republicans are racist. So if you take out the racism and if the Republican Party does move towards that, they might actually start voting conservative. I don't think that's necessarily a reason not to allow them in, but it is something to consider.
Okay, so we're gonna go to Johnny, Rose, Doobie, Jack, and Maddie.
Can I respond really quickly?
Okay, sure.
I will be fast. I'm sorry. I promise. Yeah. So I think Eris brings up a really good point that a lot of the, especially among immigrant populations who came here legally, there's a lot of, I don't know if resentment's the right term, but to see them having to spend a ton of money and time and resources going through that process and then seeing people come here illegally and sort of be able to skip that process. I understand why there's frustration. I also think that just the process for anyone that wants to come here and immigrate to this country, whether it's across those borders or whether it's from countries in the Middle East, I think it should be streamlined and expedited because I know it's so hard for anyone who wants to seek a better life here and contribute and become members of this community to do so. So I agree with you on that, but I know other people are waiting to speak, so I'll cede my time.
So let's let's go, Johnny.
Okay. I have about three.
Are you sorry? Is Johnny roboting for anyone else?
Yeah.
Johnny. Oh no.
It's all
Johnny.
very quick.
Oh boy, Johnny.
Upset.
Johnny,
Okay.
if you can hear us, you are roboting super hard. Do yourself a jump out of the panel and then jump back in. And I'll grab you. All right. Let's see if we can go real quick. See, all right. See what happens.
Hey, you guys, can you hear me now?
Still kind of
A
bad.
little better, but not. You still sound like Flo Rida or T-Pain.
Hey, I may.
What?
Okay, I tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna answer really quick on my phone. Okay.
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 All right. Oh, so why don't we while you get that ready, why don't we go to the next person and then come back? All right. Okay. So the next person on the list was Rose. Rose, please.
Yep. Okay. So, in accordance with what Counterpoint said, I'm gonna piss him off as well. I'm a Eurocook. Guns are cringe. Okay. Moving on. On to one of the things I talked about when it came to like helping other countries, you know, like in their own places. It's an argument you hear a lot, especially personally. I hear it a lot from the EU and the EU discourse. a very interesting economic fact that I learned that was really important to me, at least in the way that I perceive issues relating to economics, is that remittances, so basically money sent back by immigrants once they are allowed to enter a nation, actually as a total triple the amount of money spent on international aid generally, like on the planet as a whole. So letting them come here to our countries in that way and letting them work here as one of the best effects possible on the countries from which they came from, because it is probably the most effective way to send back money, right? Because giving money to the governments, corrupt governments, probably not going to be a good idea. Throwing flying planes above the country, dropping money, probably not going to be a good idea. Sending money back to families directly and building an economy from the bottom up, probably a good idea. On top of that, it's entirely possible it's true. I haven't heard this before, but I would like a citation. You don't need to bring it up here. You can just send me a DM whenever, counterpoints on the fact that the reason why the per capita crime rate for immigrants is lower because of they don't report it. I would be interesting with a citation. And then for the Republican democracy thing, we could have that. That's, I guess, a separate debate on whether or not the Democrats or the Republicans most accurately reflect American values. Now, onto a little bit of what Eris said about South America, Middle East, stuff like that. Well, I would definitely agree that United States very, very heavily messed over Middle East. But I would say that they fucked over South America and they destroyed the Middle East, right? Because America has a massive history of intervention within South America that has had an incredible destabilizing effect. This comes from in effect of both direct intervention and also things such as, for example, economic sanctions, which have been very difficult for them to deal with and has contributed to a destabilizing regime. Now, even though we can go through it a case-by-case basis and argue, well, was this a good one? Was this a good intervention? Was this? Was it that? Just the fact that these interventions happen so frequently inherently bring about a distrust in the civil systems within those nations. So it's bad, inherently in that way. Now, when it comes to you saying that, I guess, what are we going to do about the Middle Eastern countries? They're the ones that are most heavily discriminated against. Personally, I'm going to, apply my ideology to the United States just as I do here, the European Union, Sweden, Euro area thing. I think that the EU should take responsibility for these refugees as well. I believe that whichever countries that are nearby geographically that the refugees can get to most easily should take these people in, because I believe that a Swede or an Iraqi, they're worth the same in regards to how much resources a nation state should spend on them. I'm very, very, very globalist in that sense, internationalist, I suppose. So yeah, that's going to be my my little.
Let's
statement.
let our friend Johnny get another crack at it. Then Doobie, Jack, Connor.
We can't hear you.
You get here, yeah. Try it again. Ren, you're unmuted there, but okay, all right. So we will come back to Johnny. I think they can hear us, but we'll come back to our friend Johnny soon. Next, we are going to Doobie.
Hi. Sorry about that. I had a phone call. So I've just been listening, and I think the idea that we owe something to these people, these huddled masses coming at our border, because we fucked up their countries to further our national interests, is laughable to me. That being said, I also like to throw around feel-good buzzwords like robust investment. But the reality is that if you're talking about actually helping these countries, helping them help themselves, quote unquote, much of what we're actually talking about is helping them deal with the disgusting corruption at every level of their society. I'm helping them deal with the cartels that employ thousands of foot soldiers just across our southern border. These cartels are usually the source of the brutal violence that has these people seeking shelter in the U.S. in the first place. And it seems to me like you guys are dealing with symptoms, right, without curing the disease itself, right? I'd like to cure the disease. And I'm sure because a lot of you are lefties and you're all fucking druggies and potheads and whatnot, you're going to tell me that we should decriminalize drugs and cocaine, and we should be doing mushrooms and DMT and all this kind of shit. Fuck that. I think that we should use the military to take out the cartels in Mexico. I think we should have much, much harsher, much more draconian laws against drug use and drug dealing in this country. And I'm going to get back to the ones currently in the country. Most of these people should just be shipped back across the border. People showing up with their sad kids showing up with them, send them fucking home. Fuck them. I think that given the state of our country right now, with unemployment and people on the fucking street, and people don't have health insurance, and people are struggling with debt and college, fuck them. We need to fix our own shit first, right? So that's my position.
I concede everything. I don't want to agree with Doobie. That's all.
All right. So
let's. Jack,
Johnny's
it's yours. Then Connor, and then we'll go to Maddie after that. Yeah.
Let's see if Johnny.
Oh, Johnny. Oh, yeah. Okay,
Hey.
Johnny, give it a try. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hey, okay. Do I sound like I'm auto-tuned?
No,
No,
you're
you
all
sound
good.
great.
You're all good. Yeah.
Yeah, you sound beautiful.
Okay, cool. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so the investment period, we have 2 points about that. First of all, the individualized alternatives to detention. Those actually limit immigration in a way that puts money in the hands of American people, because you have to hire more counselors, you have to hire more translators. And that leads me to my second point. Jobs in general, these are obviously booms to the economy, but that investment period actually, while we are spending money technically on services for immigrants, we are spending it on into the pockets of the American people. And third, my point was that Casabon, who is a pretty cool dude, was putting in the chat wanting to remind us that Asian immigrants are actually the majority of immigrants for the past several years. And so illegal immigration, as far as crossing the border, is actually a huge minority, a small minority of the people who are actually possibly getting into this country illegally. What we actually need to be worried about is people overstaying visas and therefore overpopulating and or keep making it not possible for other people to get their hands on those visas that they've been waiting for.
I'm sorry. I just want to be clear. So you're
question
you're calling 45 to 50% a small minority. And I just want to be clear, because that's
I'm
the amount of
sorry.
immigrants. Okay, so I know
What?
your
Okay,
reference
45 to 50%. What is the
of
statistic,
illegal
babe?
immigrants coming to the country are coming over the southern border, right? That's
The vast majority of
Okay.
illegal immigrants are
But
coming from.
do we know
So
that
it's
that
true.
doesn't
So it's
include
true.
people
No,
going
babe.
multiple times?
No,
Because that's why we
No,
also
babe,
have
hold on, hold on,
wait,
hold on.
one at a time.
No, really quick.
Can I
Really quickly.
clarify really quick?
Okay, go
Because
ahead, go ahead.
I did not say that those people were
What do you
the
mean by small
minority.
minority? Yes, you said
Excuse me.
they're a small
Hold on.
minority.
Can you?
Johnny.
Oh my
Let her
God.
finish.
Johnny, please.
Okay. Thank you so much. So when I said small minority, I am talking about the number of people coming into the United States. And so I'm saying that the possibility for people who can be here illegally is, we are actually looking at two different groups here, okay? And so when I say small minority, I'm specifically referencing the amount of people coming over the border who are going to be staying here illegally. I'm not talking about them not being a significant portion of the illegal immigrants. Does that make sense?
I'm
I
actually
feel like
curious
you
why.
misunderstood me.
Wait,
That
I'm
is still
actually
not true.
curious
It
why
is-
this was
oh
brought
my
up.
God.
though.
Wait,
Like,
hold on.
why
Okay,
It is-
well, if
no,
you
listen,
if you
why-
want to
okay,
debunk
okay,
the
okay.
statistic, go ahead.
So we'll go to Doobie and then Supreme. And don't worry, we're going to get back on track afterwards.
And
So it is not a small minority. That's just not true. I'm not going to pull up a study for you. I'm going to be shared with you. Let's pretend it's 20%. Let's pretend 20% of the illegal.
Say whatever the real thing is.
Okay, I don't want to dig it up for you. Google it. Okay.
You
I
Google
would
it.
have
If you're
preferred
on
if you
a
Googled it
panel
before
and
you
you're
came up to
trying
this
to
panel and started
debunk
saying dumb
me,
shit.
you are
No,
on
really
a
quickly,
panel and you're trying to debunk me. I want you to be right.
Okay, go ahead.
No, what I'm saying, let's pretend it's 10% of the illegal immigrants coming to the country are coming over the southern border. That isn't a reason not to do something about the southern border. Right? That's a reason to do something about the other sources of illegal immigration. Right?
I know.
So, okay, then what's the point of bringing that up, right?
That's
all
what
you're
I
I
saying,
wanted
wanted
to
to bring it up because
hey,
we're on
there
a
are
fucking
Asians coming
panel
here
and we're
illegally
supposed
too.
to be
No,
providing
listen,
people with
if all you're
information.
saying is that there are
I'm
Asians
really
coming
curious,
here
like,
illegally
why
too,
that's
yeah, fuck
relevant.
the Asians too. They can go home too. Fuck them. Is it, like, what's
Jesus
the point of bringing it up?
Christ.
Oh, wonderful.
The
Doobie,
point
choose
of bringing it
violence
up is
every
that we are,
time.
excuse me one second. The point of bringing it up is that we are on a panel where we're supposed to be informative and tell people about immigration. And so I would like to be right. And if you want to debunk something that I said, you should be right, sweetheart.
Well, I'm actually just curious, like what the relevancy of bringing up like people overstaying their visas is.
Oh, I'm actually talking about keeping people from being able to get into the country who have been waiting 10 plus years at a time. Their visas are actually affected by the number of people who are here illegally, and therefore their visas expiring goes through the system as sort of like I hate to compare it to like a retail store, but it's basically like they're running out of the ability to give people new visas, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that we are actually losing track of people. Like
So what do you think we should do
I'm
about that?
talking
So
about
it sounds
what do
like
I think?
you're just shifting the blame though to a different group
I'm
of
not
immigrants.
shifting the blame. I'm bringing up
Okay.
another point
Okay, what do
because
you think
I
we should do
feel
about that?
like it's relevant. What do
What do
I
you
think
think
we should do about it? I think that we should hire more people and put more money into the hands of American citizens so that we can actually have more people going to these people's doors, having them be immigration counselors and checking on these people to make sure that they are here legally.
Okay, then if they're not here legally, when they find these people, what do we do with them? Do we send them home? we
That's
send
a
them back?
possibility. That's a
No, I'm
possibility.
asking you. What do you? Okay, so you brought up the Asians or
said-
whatever the fuck else that are overstaying visas, right? So when we find them, they've overstayed their visa. What do you think we should do with those people?
When we find that they've overstayed their visa, we should
Yes.
give them individualized counseling. And if they
Oh my
have a
God.
large amount of family here that is keeping them here, or if they have some sort of extenuating circumstance as to why they overstayed their visa, then perhaps they should be allowed to stay. However, if they've been here over 10 years, they might be completely living their life off the grid, then I have no reason to say that they should stay.
Also, we should maybe offer them a pathway to citizenship if they've been here for so
No,
long,
fuck
and if
that.
they're contributing, like that would be a good way to use it. I mean, that would be the most ethical, compassionate, and economically viable solution, right? So you can be like upset that like, oh, but like they're in here and Americans should have their jobs,
So-
but that's a
So
non-starter.
you're saying
It
the
seems
answer
like
to
this
this is
is
funding
how-
the State Department, right? And like hiring more visa officers so that we can process this stuff more efficiently, more quickly, right?
I mean, I do think, well, that I think that would be
All right.
probably a component. I'm assuming that. Sorry, I know, Riverboat Jack. I'm so sorry.
It's all good. I enjoy it when you talk, Maddie. I just want to get my point in because I've been waiting for a while. So when it comes to like obviously we need to address American interventionism, and like that's a long-term project, right? We have to deal with like the results of that right now. And I don't think like dealing with the results of that would be positively influenced if the United States invaded all of Latin America to fight a massive drug war for like the next 20 years. Okay. I think that would be in effect a really bad thing that would destabilize the region further by quite a bit. In fact, like and again, like maybe this seems like the hippy dippy position, right? Like, oh, just decriminalize the drugs. Well, guess what? We can look at Portugal. Portugal's decriminalized their drugs for the past 2 decades. And you know what? They've seen massive decreases in overdose deaths, HIV, drug-related crime, etc. For example, when you're talking about HIV in Portugal, it declined from 104.2 cases per 100,000 people to 4.2 per 100,000 people over the course of about like 14, 15 years. Okay. So like when we're talking about decriminalization of drugs, it is literally something that both helps people in the United States and also like immigrants who are facing like dangers in their home countries from like cartels and stuff like that. Maybe by adopting a policy like that, we don't actually have to, invade the entirety of Latin America to try and end the drug trade. Okay. Like maybe doing that would actually have a lot wider negative impacts. And I know Doobie just cares about America, but would have wider negative impacts on America specifically compared to like the not even mentioning the rest of Latin America. But on top of that, like yeah, I don't see any reason why there shouldn't be why spend, like, it costs a ton of money to ship people back to their home country. Why not just like use the money that we could be using doing that to just like situate them in the United States, help them get jobs, help them integrate into wider society, get them some form of residency with minimal barriers, and then, you know what, provide them with a pathway to citizenship. I think that way actually has a lot more economic incentives and betters the wider United States by creating a much wider taxable pool of people than just like being like, no, fuck you, get out of this country, kid.
Do you
Like,
understand
what-
though how that's like kind of a
Asian
nationalistic
kid, go
perspective?
home.
Hang on.
Like,
Do you
what?
understand
what
how
the
that's kind of
fuck
like an
is
American
this?
exceptionalist perspective though, and a nationalist one that comes at the detriment of those host countries?
Wait, no. We need to, again, you didn't listen to what I said. We need to deal with the problem we have right now, which is people are showing up and we have to do something with them. And the long-term project is, of course, rebuilding the infrastructure of Latin America, rebuilding diplomatic ties with the rest of the world, especially places that we previously like colonized either through direct methods or indirect methods, and of course, like, providing that them the infrastructure they need to build themselves up and the economic opportunity in their home country to build themselves up, without being like, you can build yourselves up, but only if you are serving capitalist interests. You are only allowed to be banana republics, okay? Like, obviously,
Why should we
that's
build
the
them up
case.
if they're not
Wait, no,
serving our
no, Doobie,
interests?
please. I want to talk. Okay, why? So the stat that you brought up about HIV, right? Like, that stat doesn't seem. What year specifically
It was
does the
from
stat? You said
2000
10 to
it was-
15 years.
Yeah, it was from 2001 to 2015.
Okay, so from 2001 to 2015, HIV decreased significantly by almost the same rate, like in almost every Western country. So
yeah, but it was aided by decriminalization.
Yeah, but in every Western country when there wasn't any decriminalization there. So, like, HIV rates have
Well,
been
then you
decreasing
can
since the
probably
late
point to
90s. So,
decriminalization as a factor that wasn't negatively impacting that, right?
no, but you can't say
That's how
that
statistics would. That's
yeah,
how you would
you can't.
interpret those statistics. Yeah.
Yeah, you
To
can't
be
just
fair,
say
Riverboat
that
Jack
like
has
in
changed their
90.
argument slightly here,
Mhm.
from it's supporting it to it just not really having a detrimental effect.
But then you would also have to
Okay, sorry.
explain
Then
like the
sure.
decreases in like drug crime.
Sure. Okay. But anyways, so yeah, I want to push back against that statistic. I also thought like when it comes to the like the concept of fairness too, right? Like almost, I mean, I come from an immigrant family. Almost every immigrant family I've met, and this is total anecdote, right? I don't know if there are any stats to back this up. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Is really, really against illegal immigration, and it's because it's incredibly challenging to become an immigrant, even in countries like Canada, where it's
I
it's
don't
a little
care about
easier.
fairness in immigration.
Okay, right.
I just
but
want to
but
make
I
it
don't
easier for
understand.
everybody.
Okay, but I
Just
just
'cause
don't
it's hard
understand.
for
Like
some
you
other
care about
people.
fairness in almost every other aspect. When it comes to getting COVID vaccines, when it comes to
I don't believe in
who gets
creating an
ahead.
artificial barrier to keep people out of this country just because it would be more fair to people who already got in.
No, but it's not just about from people who are already get in. People who just don't want to break the laws of a country in order to get in, right?
Yeah, so
Because
let's change the laws.
they value the consent of those countries. Yeah, but that's not the case today. Right. The case today
So,
is that
yeah,
there are
exactly,
laws.
but
So
we're
a country, right?
talking about what we
A
want to
country
have
has made
happen.
certain laws about what they have consented to make them comfortable, right? So whether or not you agree that's correct or incorrect, okay, and then there
We're
are some
talking about
people
how
that
we would
say,
change immigration, though, not how it is now.
But Jack,
wait, that's
so
okay. That feels a weird back.
No, that's literally the
That's
question.
not
Should
what
hold
should
on.
this
it
policy
seems like
change?
people are actually
Can I ask-
talking about.
The
Yeah,
question
unless
is
I'm
literally,
misunderstanding,
should
people
this
are talking
policy
about that.
change?
wait, Jack. So do you support any limitations on immigration?
I would
Like, at all?
I would be open if somebody can make a good argument for them.
So if we had a million people from the Middle East coming in here, you'd be totally fine with that.
Tomorrow.
I mean,
Tomorrow.
we would probably have to have some sort of system to like build up the infrastructure for that. But yeah,
Okay, so you'd.
What a useless hypothetical.
So this, no, it's
Wait,
not a
it's
hypothetical.
not
It's
useless.
literally
wait,
not. We
wait,
just went through a massive refugee
Doobie, do you
crisis.
have insight? Are there
Hold
a
on.
million?
No,
Are there a
listen,
million
listen,
Middle
listen.
Eastern immigrants
No,
coming
we
tomorrow?
just-
Is
no,
that the
Do I
next
need to-
caravan?
do I need to
Me
find
and
my
the fellow
boner?
Eurocuts will take care of the Middle Easterns, okay? We got this.
I don't-
Americans, you guys don't need to argue
So
about
if the
this.
policy-
You
alright?
guys,
Thank
I'll make the
you.
welcome sign. I'll make
If
the
the
welcome.
policy.
All right,
the
wonderful.
policy is
Send it
that
to me by
there-
mail.
Oh my God! If the policy is that there are no limits on immigration, right, short of us having the infrastructure, why wouldn't there be a massive surge from all over the world, from the Middle East, from South America, from fucking everywhere? Why wouldn't that happen? And this is how you get to Connor's point when you guys are actually saying infinite immigration, because that's what you're fucking saying, right? And it's true. This would probably benefit the U.S. economically, right? I can
Doobie,
agree
did
with
an
that.
infinite
But-
number of
no,
people
listen,
come into the
but
United States prior
oh my
to
God,
us
yeah,
making
listen,
like borders
but
a thing?
a nation is this. I feel weird having to make this point to you. A nation is more than
Good.
its economy, right? A nation is much more than its economy. They're massive, like cultural classes. So if we did have a million people from the Middle East coming in here tomorrow, whether or not we had the infrastructure, there'd be a massive fucking problem in this country.
Was there a massive problem?
Which is great
in
that we
Germany
don't
when
have
they
a
allowed
million
a
people
much
arriving on
larger-
one day.
Was it a massive
And
problem
people
in
arriving
Germany
on
when they
one.
allowed
Okay, hold the fuck up. I need to get the fuck up.
890,000
Jack,
people to
Jack
arrive in
finish your
1
point.
year?
Then don't worry, I'm gonna go to you,
Like-
Connor. Go ahead.
Like we've had examples of this in much smaller countries where there's like not the huge like doomsday
Where?
scenario that you're like talking
Wait,
about.
where?
Like Syrian refugees in Germany.
Okay, it's here. Let's see,
literally
look at-
literally
look-
a
no, look
million
at how
people,
Syrian
which is a
refugees
much
affected
larger
Greece.
portion of of the population in the United States
The
arrived in
Europe-
Germany over the course
No,
of 1
that's
year.
not true. The European Union had massive problems with their like cultural conflicts. They're still having these problems. You can look at
Not
how
in
it's-
Germany,
no,
no.
listen.
What massive
Listen,
problems?
Stop.
No, you have to give me concrete
I'm about to
examples.
give you one. I'm about to give you one, right?
Okay.
So Greece had, I think, was like 1 million or almost 2 million refugees just go through their country, right? Many of them settled there and were sent off to some fucking island, but a lot of these people went through the country and still caused massive problems. They're still causing problems today. They caused the resurgence of neo-Nazi parties in the country, right?
Wait. No, you can't. No.
Listen,
It is not the fault of immigrants that people decide to be
That's
neo-Nazis.
victim blaming.
No, they're
What
not.
the fuck?
No,
It's probably better not to use the term fault and say that it may be the result
listen.
of.
Do you blame women
Yes,
for wearing short skirts too?
No. See, it's the woman's fault when she gets beaten by her
Let
abuser.
Doobie finish
Right,
his
like
point.
that's kind of a weird.
Let Doobie actually finish his
Doesn't make any
point, and
sense
then
to me,
we're gonna
right?
let Connor jump in. Then we'll go to Maddie, then Rose. Okay.
This is what makes like no sense to me. So you guys are allegedly progressives, pro gay rights, pro trans rights, pro women's rights, pro all these fucking nice things, right? But you're telling me right now that you'd have no problem with hundreds of thousands or millions of people from the Middle East that have a totally different understanding of all these concepts coming into your country and settling down over the next few years. You're telling me that you'd have no issue with that, and how that would affect voting, and how that would affect public policy and all these positions?
Doobie, because everybody is an American deep down. Everybody's a Westerner. Everybody understands liberal democracy. Everybody understands
That
like
is what we're
individual
saying.
rights, freedom of speech, rule of law. Everybody just loves these things inherently. So if you accept like 100 million people from a completely different section of the world with completely different conceptions of like how government works, how religion affects their
population
lives,
of the United
anything like
States
that,
definitely
you're just automatically
definitely
adopt all of
increased
the
by
ideas
100
that we
million.
value in our society.
Holy
So I don't know what
shit.
your problem is.
Wait, counterpoints, did you just imply that those morals are inherent? Like
The 100,000
American
immigrant
style
straw
of
men.
morals? Like what the fuck?
Inside every
I think he was being
Vietnamese person is
facetious,
an
but-
American. Okay, so Roserist, I appreciate you for taking all of the immigrants from Middle East and North Africa. Thank you for your offer. Sincerely appreciated. Love you, buddy. All right, so direct response from turmoil in these countries, American imperialism, unrest and turmoil. Okay, so this is where like we could probably agree on some subjects. And also on top of that, like Jack, I just got to push back just a little bit because I love you dearly. So the immediate problems are people coming right now. We have to have a solution for that. That was kind of your point. My point is this is treating the symptoms and not treating the cause, the origin. Okay, so basically the very simple things that I brought up earlier. So food, security, social order. Those things, as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, are necessary in order to establish in these countries. That way, these countries have their own rule of law and they don't suffer brain drain, as multiple people have pointed out multiple times. We can debate brain drain another day.
Well,
who gives a shit? Anyways, the way that you do that is through soft power and hard power. Soft power is the social programs, as my beautiful friend Rose mentioned, remittances, basically allowing the people who are already here to send money back to those countries. That way, they basically can build from the ground up. It also comes from something called foreign internal defense. This is something that Marines do. This is something that the Green Berets do. They go into already existing corrupt countries. They train security forces that are specifically handpicked to not be corrupt. Those people then in turn basically bully and pressure the security forces that are already there. And then once the security forces are clean, you can build a social infrastructure that actually works. I am completely okay with either Central and Central America voting their ways into the United States, because frankly, I have a problem with Puerto Rican and DC statehood that is aesthetic. We cannot have 52 stars on the flag. Okay, we need 60. So let's go ahead and annex Mexico, Panama, whatever the fucking Belize. Let's go ahead and annex all of these countries, add them in as states, and as long as we arrive on an even number, I'm perfectly fine with it. Because then, instead of saying, "Hey, let's go ahead and deal with your corruption problem," hey, guess what? It's our problem now. So now we got to fix it.
Right. Wait, hang on.
Nobody. I'm not
Like,
Prime,
sorry,
I have two
Prime,
more
did I
points.
finish my point that I was
Yeah,
making earlier before
two more
points?
And I'm actually, Eris, I'm actually going to back you up here, okay? Nobody has addressed
Oh, then that's
Eris's points. Nobody has addressed Eris's points about welfare and social democratic economics being reliant on having a predictable state. Nobody has fucking addressed that. And then on top of that, I
feel
really
like I
think
have,
that we pointed
personally.
out infinite immigration again and again. So, fine. All right. I have like another 2 or 3 points, but you guys seem to be chomping at the bit. So with that, I'll yield. You guys trigger the fuck out of me, but I love you.
Please don't
dearly.
get scalped. Okay, I'm just curious. When you say annex Central American countries, like you're not talking about actually just marching in and taking them by force, right?
Sure, why not?
I'd be okay with that.
I mean, because it's
No, we
you
were
know,
gonna
a threat
ask
to their
nicely.
sovereignty. In general, so like in general, I agree with the idea of like strengthening our military cooperation with
This is
Central American
largely
countries.
me. Largely
Okay,
me.
for
No, I
sure.
mean,
So,
Mexicans would be better off than Americans. It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, if they want to make that choice, if they want to make
Maddie,
that choice,
I
and
would
we're
like to
able to
see
like
your evidence
strengthen
to
our
the
international
contrary.
relations with Mexico, which is one of our most important, you know, like borders, right? The trade that we do with Mexico, both to and from, is like extremely important to both countries. But yeah, like the idea of strengthening our military cooperation to like help decartelize Mexico and like bolster the legitimacy of the Mexican central government, I think is one of the paths forward. But you know, when you say treating the symptom doesn't cure the root cause, the problem is that not treating the symptom, Connor. In this case, if the symptom is lots of like swaths of people showing up at the southern border that aren't going to be let in, don't have places to stay, don't have resources to sustain like their lives, not treating the symptom, the consequence for that is like the death of potentially millions.
Don't lock me in with Doobie. I am not an isolationist.
Okay, so I just want to make it clear that like this is a thing that has to be addressed, right? This is why I was curious about.
I do
Go ahead.
care. I do think the lives of Central Americans and South Americans do have some kind of value. I disagree with Rose Risk that like nations have to like prioritize everybody from every country like equally, regardless of like you know, personal political affiliation or religious affiliation. Like I don't agree with that at all. But at the same time, like no, I don't think that seeing like starving people at your border and just being like, hey, sucks to suck, good luck, bye. Like I don't think that's a policy that
Right. So what are some of the solutions? I haven't seen you address any solutions to this symptom.
Sure. Well, okay, yeah, sure. So having predictable immigration policy would be one. So for instance, like I don't
But these
necessarily
people
have
are ignoring immigration policy, and they're showing up, and they're gonna die if they're not
No,
taken care
no,
of.
no, 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 no. Let me address this directly because I think it's incredibly important. So I think rhetoric in politics, the reason why we keep seeing this backlash in immigration numbers year to year, is partially because America does not have a coherent immigration policy. I don't think we've ever had a coherent immigration policy. I like Rose Risk basically beating us in the face with the words of French people that we have to take the huddled masses, you know, regardless of circumstance.
Well,
Thanks
we
for
did
that.
accept the gift.
Fuck the French. But basically, no, we need
It
a
is
coherent policy.
it is kind of ironic coming from the French.
Right, exactly. So
not so
basically,
bad.
we need to have a coherent policy of saying, hey, we'll take 500,000 to 1.5 million of you guys every single year. We'll get you into society. We'll create decent social safety nets. We'll do all that kind of stuff. But the reason why I'm incredibly incremental and the reason why this like infinite immigration, I'm saying it again, really triggers the fuck out of me is because basically there are things that I do not think are inherent to like people. There's a great movie. It's called Full Metal Jacket. And basically, while American Marines are overseas and they're killing Vietnamese folk, one of the generals says inside every there's a racial slur, but basically inside every single Vietnamese person is an American. I don't believe that. I don't think our values are genetic. I don't think that they're given to us with mother's milk. I think these things are educated. I think they're taught, and I want to see them perpetuated. So yield.
Okay, let's go to Maddie, then
Wait,
Rose.
Could I finish
Well,
the
like,
point?
does
that I was
Eris?
making
Yeah,
before?
Eris,
sorry,
finish
okay.
your
Maddie.
point.
Okay. This is why I like having girls on the panel because we're all really nice to each other. So yeah. Okay. So just some gender essentialism there. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Supreme apologize, goddammit.
Okay.
Go
All
ahead.
right. So I was making a point before DB really interrupted me. At least when River Jack, like, when oh my god, I can't even speak. When she was interrupting me, she still like let me finish my point. But anyways, so what I was saying before, right, is that if you're a moral realist, right, then that it just makes sense to believe in the concept of fairness, at least some concept of fairness, especially if you believe in something like the rule of law, right? And just in general, like the type of when it comes to like your waiting in line, the way we operate our society, I mean most societies in general, is that people follow these fairness doctrines. Okay, so when you're waiting in line for Starbucks, you don't just get to skip the line unless you're in Israel, because people can be really rude there. I don't know why that is, but anyways, so you don't just like skip the line. It's not okay, right? And just like that habit of people are just not allowed to break rules and just like get away with it because it directly hurts the person who was waiting in line and didn't skip the line beforehand, right? So like, so people who are being an illegal immigrant, they're actively hurting legal immigrants, right? Or people, not even legal immigrants, but people who are trying to become legal immigrants. Like they, and that there is a direct causal there, right? On top of that, if you look at something, if we just applied like these rules to just something like vaccines, we're giving vaccines based on who needs it most. Okay, we're making lists, right, and organizing them. Okay, the good kind of lists, right, where you're trying to decide, okay, who needs it most, right? Prioritizing people who need priorities, etc. Right. So it's and it's being decided by experts. So would we just like if people just like ran, whoever wanted and just like ran to the building and just stole the vaccines, are we just going to be like, okay, sure. I mean, I'm just going to call you like an undocumented like vaccine giver or something like that, or a vaccine taker, and that's totally fine. Even though that person directly took vaccines, that could have gone to someone who's been waiting in line following that laws. And on top of that, like the type of person that you're going to be getting, you're taking up those spaces of the people who are waiting, people who are respecting the laws of a different country, right? People who admire those laws. That's probably why they want to come to the country in the first place. So I just don't understand why they're not getting valued like in this talk.
Can I respond real quick?
Real quick. No, we gotta go to Maddie and Rose.
I don't think people want to immigrate because they're like, gee golly willikers, that those laws, they're really good. I love those laws so much. They're trying to immigrate because of economic opportunity that they want for themselves, their family, their kids. And frankly, like this idea that
how are these not tied? How is
not
economic
only that.
benefit
Let
not tied to
her
security? This is fucking
finish.
ridiculous.
Clap.
I love you, Riverboat, but fuck me.
We're congratulating on having an all-women panel, yet I think the only people that have been interrupted have been women. Okay, I think we gotta step up our game.
Okay, calm down.
Thank you.
But the end point I'm trying to make is that oftentimes the people who can afford to wait in line when it comes to immigration have the money to be able to wait in line in a way that poorer people do not have an opportunity
No,
to
I
do.
disagree with that so intensely. I think that's just an assumption. I
It
think you're
also
making an
costs
assumption
money.
that's not based
It
on
also
logic.
costs a lot of money. Like people do save up a lot of money because
Yeah,
the
it
journey
costs
to
a lot
crossing
of
the U.S.
money.
border is quite expensive. You know what I mean? So it's not that it's true that people seek economic opportunity, but like you understand that the money in your wallet is economic opportunity for me, right?
So,
And that by reaching into it and grabbing it, it's a demonstration that I don't respect to a set of values that like as a society we're meant to agree to, and that
I-
like.
I
ahead.
truly wish that I could I had the time to jump into this because oh man, I really want to fight. But Maddie, fight for me. You be my champion.
I will oh my god, I will certainly try. So first, like I know in debates people love bringing up hypotheticals to make points, but I think when that hypothetical isn't rooted in actual reality, saying like, well, how would you feel if 10 million people were at the border right now? It's like, well, here's the deal. Like that isn't actually how that works here. And I'd rather exchange ideas and talk about things that are rooted in reality so that we can talk about like when you say tangible solutions or like, well, how would you fix the problem? I think there are a number of different ways. Also, it's interesting that the drug war was brought up because a lot of the reason that you're seeing violence among cartels and that the drug industry, especially in South America and Central America, is so violent is specifically a reaction to the fact that it is illegal. It's because when you have to assume even more risk because your product is illegal and you're exporting it, the amount that you then invest in protecting that and getting rid of competitors skyrockets. It increases the militarization of that industry. So one of the things we could do actually to decrease cartel violence would be to decriminalize drugs because you're removing their power and their ability to charge massive premiums on those drugs. And then if you remove their actual economic power, you're removing their power as a whole in those countries. That's true. And we've seen that happen, believe it or not, in the states where weed has been legalized. So I don't know. I also
Does anyone here disagree that ending the war on
else.
drugs is like one thing that will ameliorate cartelization in Mexico? Does anybody disagree with that?
Doobie does.
Immediately?
Yeah,
No. No,
immediately.
and like this is something
I
that
think they would just
every
go
single
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that like this, and this isn't something that I'm sort of just like pulling out of my ass. Like for a lot of people who are foreign policy experts who study the economics of the drug trade, because it's honestly like a fascinating thing from just like an academic standpoint. One of the things you do to remove their power is remove their ability to charge these premiums that makes these cartel leaders some of the wealthiest people in the world. And you do that by legalizing or decriminalizing, because then there's no need for people especially in the United States, to seek them and buy their drugs when you can already have a robust growing business, like production and distribution business domestically.
So let's go to Rose. Has been waiting quite patiently. Then we'll jump back into this.
All right. Well, Alex Jones was right. The chemicals in the water sure are doing something to the frogs. I don't know if it's making them gay though. Now, before I go on with the rest of my thing, I just want to just really clearly, just in just 2 sentences, make clear my stance on this, so that just the people who want to critique me have it very clearly. So I don't believe in any way that like just immigration and taking refugees is a long-term or like permanent solution to all the problems facing these countries. Obviously, that's not something I agree with. I believe in a lot of the things that Connor Point said as means by which to actually solve these issues at the root: soft power, hard political power, remittances, yada yada yada. That's my stance on it. So yeah, immigration is one part of a multifaceted issue that requires a whole broad range of solutions. Now, I don't want this to seem like I'm kind of like freezing you out, or like I'm pushing out the discussion here, Dewey. But I think that a lot of the main disagreements, I suppose, that comes with you compared to the rest of the panel has to do with something that is somewhat axiomatic, and that is, I suppose, what should I say, entitlement? I'll say entitlement. That's less provocative. Like, I guess the entitlement of individuals for different resources, depending on like where they came from or whatever. I think generally people hear and agree, to different levels, that there isn't a drastic or like a massive difference between how much resources we should spend on somebody who is American compared to somebody who's in another country. I think that, yeah, all these people are entitled to research. At some point, you seem to illustrate or have like more of it's like, oh, well, fuck them, they were born in the wrong random geographical location. Secondly, I think it's kind of funny that you make fun of like the situation in the European Union when it comes to their handling of like refugees. You talked about Greece, for example, and the reason why the European Union has had some difficulties with that is because of the exact types of like sort of like ideals or frameworks that you've like presented during this discussion. Frameworks of, okay, no, this is not our problem, we don't want to deal with this, because there were a number of European states that had that really strong stance. There was an inequitable distribution of refugees and migrants, and therefore certain infrastructure systems were overloaded. And this is also combined with just certain incompetent leaderships in certain countries, which I will happily admit, even within Sweden, for example. I'm going real far back because there's a lot of stuff here. Drug decriminalization thing. I don't think drug decriminalization is a perfect thing everywhere. Obviously, definitely not. I think that in a lot of developed countries right now, it's something that absolutely should be followed when it comes to Portugal and stuff like that. But when it comes to some other countries, like, for example, like Mexico, you can even make an argument for the Midwest in the United States of America, for example. Certain types of drug decriminalization would probably be harmful. It wouldn't be a great idea in the short term. There needs to be more changes to be done before we can ever get to that point. The issue that Eris had with SOCDEMs that Connor Point said nobody had addressed. I think that issue that you need like a sort of like predictable population pattern isn't necessarily an inherent sort of like contradiction or problem with a social democracy. I think that this has more to do with just like competent leadership and being able to have a well-functioning social democracy, more than it has to do with an issue with social democracy in itself. I would also like to say that I think Connor Point should get the opportunity to speak more, because we're railing him a lot and he doesn't. I don't feel like he has enough time to address everything as made obvious. But now, because I give him a compliment, and also because he used the word infinite immigration again, I have to give him some tip for something that's American. The imperial system is shit, useless, and literally incoherent. I can measure things better with my toenails.
Okay.
Now, final thing that was mentioned most recently, with the thing Eris was talking about, like the like fairness doctrine or whatever. I think that the best way to reduce illegal immigration is not to harder crack down illegal immigration. It's to improve legal immigration and improve people's incentives to go there instead. That's probably the best way to circumnavigate that, ensure that a lot of people can immigrate there, and ensure that it's done in a way that's according to the fairness doctrine. And that's my massive monologue.
Okay,
they
so really quickly, so Maddie, you had a problem with us presenting hypotheticals. I guess would you consider unrealistic hypotheticals? Unrealistic hypotheticals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the issue that I have with that is what we're dealing with right now is basically a situation where either over or approaching 500,000 illegal immigrants are caught on the southern border every year. Right. So you guys are proposing a system that, to me, it seems a lot like infinite immigration, right? Or at least Jack is it, Maddie. I'm not really sure about you. It seems like you're saying that we should make things easier or something, but you haven't really laid out like whether or not there's a limit on the amount of people that we let into this country, right? If there is no limit, then yeah, it's infinite, right? Okay. So in this system, right? Given that as things are now with our border already pretty secure, people have been apprehended and sent back home and being put into cages and shit when they try to get it over and they get caught. I don't understand why you couldn't imagine a situation in which, if we stopped doing that, if we started saying, hey, as many of you can come in as our infrastructure can handle, we wouldn't have millions of people showing up in this country every year. So you're presenting a fucking unrealistic hypothetical, and we're presenting you with the consequences of that hypothetical, and then you're saying, oh, well, I just don't like unrealistic hypotheticals. It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Would you like to know what I would do for all those people at the border?
Sure.
Excellent. So here's the thing. The reality is that we have systems and platforms in place to be able to easily track every single person that comes into this country. And that's not me like spitting, talking out my ass. Like, we have those systems in place, but we haven't employed them for that purpose. So what we need to do, or at least should I be in charge or have any authority over what our immigration policy is, what I would do is I would use those systems and those ways to track people so that, when people come into the country, it's not just like we open the door, we don't know who's in the country. Because I do think it's important to know where people are, who they are. I'm not done. And so I'm also not done. Thank you. So if I think it's not, one thing is to have them tracked, but at the same time, I think we're seeing, those horrible conditions at the border, especially by facilities that are run by ICE or by the Border Control. Ways to avoid people staying and languishing in those detention centers is to expedite the process through which they receive asylum, and that they're then placed into the country. A lot of these people have family that are already in the country, so it's not like they're coming here without knowing anyone. So it's like, I don't know. I don't really necessarily see a big problem with just allowing these people in and having a more compassionate and realistic situation or system in place that tracks them and monitors them so that we know who's in the country. We are making it so that should they then go back to their home countries or send money back, that is facilitated. And then also couple that with a more compassionate and empathetic foreign policy.
Sorry, I'm curious,
so that we're also
tracking
empowering those countries.
Wait, how are we tracking these people? I'm curious.
There are a bunch of systems in place. So it's not just stuff that's run by the State Department. There's a lot of, I could send over like an article if you want to see like the exact systems. I'm not a State Department employee.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I genuinely don't know. But yeah,
no,
there are others.
But I feel like you didn't respond to what I said. Right. So you guys were upset. Many of you were, oh, there's not a million people at the border right now. It's silly. Well, you guys were upset earlier. You're upset with that. You were annoyed by the hypothetical, I presume. So you were saying that there aren't a million people at the border. There aren't a million people at the border. And because there aren't a million people at the border, it's silly to even think that a million people would show up from the Middle East and try to get into our country. Right. But again, sure. Maybe let's call it over a year, right? So
I want Connor to go.
Listen. In the year, that's fine. In the year 2000, we had 1.6 million people caught at the southern border. This is not like a crazy thing. This could very easily happen, especially if we have a system in which people are just being led into the country, so long as they're chipped or something, and we have the infrastructure to deal with them. I think we could very easily see a situation in which we have 1 million, 2 million people showing up per year, right? And many of these people are going to be coming from places where gay rights are not respected, women's rights are not respected, trans rights are not respected, where religious freedom is not respected. And I don't understand how you guys can call yourselves progressives and liberals and invite all these people
are
into your
plenty
country.
of people
No,
here
stop,
who
stop,
don't
stop.
It's
respect
really
those
easy.
things.
Invite all these people
To
into
call
your
ourselves
country
that.
that will vote against the goals that you guys claim to have. It doesn't make any fucking sense to me.
Do be fine. 1 million, 10
But you
million of
don't
them, they have
care
to be
about the
subject to our
goals we
federal laws
have.
and like equal
I'd
employment
like to
opportunity,
nominate
like
Connor
anti-discrimination laws,
to
you know,
finally
protected
talk.
classes and stuff like that. It doesn't matter if we have 10 million Muslims, even if they're radical Muslims coming over the border in 1 year, they still have to contend with, you know,
Wait, but it does
like
if we
200
get
million
the
voters.
fuck-
let's
okay,
go-
God damn it, dude.
but Johnny hasn't got a chance to talk to him in a while. So Johnny, then Connor. All right.
Hey, thank you
Holy
so much.
shit.
And Connor, I'll be brief, okay?
You don't have to be.
so-
You're the best.
Thank you so much. So, access to counseling. I was sitting here thinking, you know, access to counseling increases the rates exponentially at which these people actually do come to the border and immigrate legally, which is by refugee status. So, what has to happen is when you come to the border, you have to prove your refugee status, which takes quite a lot of time and a lot of manpower. So, I was thinking about that and, you know, all the job creation opportunities for that. But at the end of the day, Joe Biden has said, and it's very recently, he said, do not, and he was not speaking to American people, he was speaking to people who want to immigrate. He said, do not leave your towns, do not leave your countries. He said that last week. And so that's still a great opportunity, right? Because someone said earlier that we should better our trade policies with these countries so that we can actually support them in a way that mutually supports the United States. And that's therefore an opportunity to better our trade policies by hiring more foreign liaisons. We could even hire, there are plenty of test making sites and you know, contractors and shit like that who create like government tests and websites. This is a whole stack of things that we can do for American people as well, to create a website so that you can take a test, so that you can be paid to travel as a foreign liaison for the United States, because that's the kind of shit that we should be offering our people. Okay, and that's all I have to say about that. I just think that you should be reasonable about your immigration policy, but you should also make sure that anything you do mutually benefits the American people.
Okay, go ahead, Connor, and then Jack, please.
God damn. All right, listen. I don't take this personal. You guys are just triggering the fuck out of me.
It's
All
okay.
right, Maddie Cakes. Fucking
Yeah.
like you can use whatever fucking words you want. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but whenever you fucking use the word compassionate, we should have more compassionate. What you're insinuating is that anybody who disagrees with you doesn't have a compassionate fucking thing. And in that case, you're right. Doobie's a fucking asshole. But at the same time, when you're talking about Supreme or myself, no, I do give a shit about human beings in general. While I do think that we have national organizations as a whole, you know, basically, like, I do care about people of the world. I'm just not a filthy globalist like Rose Wrist. All right. Fucking Jack just fucking went for the throat and triggered the fuck out of me and gave me an aneurysm. Gee golly willikers, how about these laws? Yes. Yes, unironically, this is important. A functioning society in which there is a predictable amount of social cohesion and people are expected to follow certain laws. Yes, that is important. So, for instance, it is not normal inside the United States or Europe for you to load up a fucking truck with fucking cinder blocks and drive into a crowd of people. That's important. A certain level of social, like, predictability is fucking important. And in societies where that is fucking normal, it's a fucking problem. So basically, hold on, I'll get to you in a second, Supreme. God damn it. All right, they're coming for the economics. The economics are rooted in the security. This is why I very sincerely encourage everybody in the fucking chat and everybody in this fucking thing to literally Google Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's a problem with the model. It's not perfect. It doesn't apply all the fucking time. But basically what it says is that people prioritize certain needs first. Food being primary, physical security and housing being the second one, and social order being the third, and ego and self-actualization being the fourth and fifth. These things are incredibly important. You cannot have a functioning economy if you do not have your security or basic fundamental needs met. This is important. God damn it. Also, I'm interrupting you guys, not because I'm a misogynist, but because I'm an egalitarian. If I heard somebody saying something that was triggering me and they happen to have a penis, I would definitely yell at them and interrupt them. So if anything, I'm the most feminist person on this panel. Finally, hypotheticals. Almost done. Hypotheticals that don't apply. Maddie, I am not buying this fucking argument at all. Pretending that we can't have, like, conceptualize 10 million people per year, as Doobie originally said, wanting to come to the United States. I'm pretty sure if we adopted Riverboat Jack's fucking policies or your fucking policies, we would have 10 million people per year. And
Cool, they can all go
finally,
live in Wyoming.
two more points. Fucking Supreme said it doesn't matter if 10 million jihadists come or Islamist extremists come in a single fucking year. Yes, it fucking does. It definitely fucking does.
Why?
And why? I don't fucking know. And when I was 14
Well,
years
then
old,
why
did
argue so
11
vehemently?
assholes- I'm not
You seem
fucking
so
done.
confident.
No. You asked a question that was stupid as fuck, and I'm going to answer it for you. Why? Because 11 fucking people flew 2 fucking jetliners into buildings worth billions and launched a multi-trillion-dollar war. That mattered. 20 minutes away from my fucking house, somebody came to this fucking country. Their son, who is a homophobic asshole, walked into a fucking club and
Connor,
gunned
were those
down
people immigrants?
55 fucking gay people. So it does matter. On the fucking aggregate, you might
were
not
those
give a
people
shit about
American
fucking terrorism. I'm
citizens?
not done yet. I'm not fucking done yet. So
Okay.
on the aggregate, you might not care about terrorism and its fucking consequences, but it does matter. It does matter to their families. It does matter to the people who are killed. It does matter to the societal impacts. It does matter how fucking nations respond to it. So asking why having 10 million Islamist extremists admitted to a fucking country because the world will keep spinning, that's the dumbest fucking thing I've heard all night, even though I respect you. So I'm sorry if that's a little mean.
Okay,
But you can go fuck yourself for that comment. No, last point, and then you guys can respond for 20 minutes and I'll shut the fuck up for another 20 minutes.
It's a rare day when I get to see you signal
Maddie and
virtue.
I agree on one thing, which is decriminalization and legalization. I think the United States of America should fundamentally buy all of the cocaine in the world. I think we should buy all of the heroin in the world. We should prop up the cartel families and say, you guys are going legit, or we are going to send the CIA into your house and we're going to execute all of you. We're going to buy your cocaine. We're going to buy your fucking heroin. You're going to go fucking legit. You're going to stop bribing fucking police officers. We are going to synthesize this into the world's drug supply for anesthetics and painkillers. And then basically at that point, the cartels fucking disappear. And if anybody gets out of line, we fucking kill them. Yield.
Wow.
Okay.
Damn.
So,
Lot to unpack there.
first off, based, but also the CIA is already in those rooms. Let's be honest, okay?
True.
The other thing is, so here's like my question, right? Like, well, also just a small add-on. Connor, would you be in favor of deporting white extremists, like white Christian extremists?
Oh my
from the
God, if I
country?
could. Yeah,
Okay.
sure, if I could.
Look, you know
If they
what?
weren't
You know what?
fucking yeah.
I'll
If
get
they
on.
weren't
I'll get on board
citizens-
with that. I'll get on board with that. If we're going to deport
Okay.
anyone, let's deport the extremist
Yeah,
groups that are prone
okay,
to terrorism. The FBI is scared of.
Th-
Okay?
This is
back
a very brief
exile.
meme. Very brief meme. Endernax wants to take all the authoritarian communists and all of the fascists and give them their own like islands, and they can create fascist and communist utopia. If they try to invade anybody else, we nuke them. But besides that, they can all be safely exported to their own countries.
Okay.
I love this. I love
Um,
that.
So,
Boom Beach, but in real life.
one of my big questions
Right.
that's kind of been looming behind this entire conversation, right, is how much are we on this panel willing to hurt U.S. citizens in order to engage in like deporting undocumented immigrants, right? Like, I mean, like just looking at like the number of like mixed households that's like undocumented immigrants who are with, citizens of the United States. There are over 5 million households that fall into that category, right? Like if we were to deport all undocumented immigrants, go the full doobie route, you got the secret police running around arresting people, you got the secret ICE running around breaking into buildings, fuck you children, get out of here. Like we're talking like millions of home mortgages like suddenly going up in flames. We're talking like literally a loss of like trillions of dollars to the United States economy over the course of about a decade, okay? Like, and there are studies on this around the estimate's about $4.7 trillion to the US economy lost, just gone. Okay. And instead, we could have like those undocumented immigrants working, integrating into US society, and eventually becoming benefits to the wider society. We get a lot better food from immigrants, by the way. I don't want to live in like UK light where we have like, just sandwiches and like
potatoes.
fish on every corner. No thanks.
Yeah.
So let's just be real. When we're talking about undocumented immigrants and just like get the fuck out, or y'all got to do it the right way. Y'all got to do it the right way. What we're talking about is like something that will negatively impact the entire US economy in a way that like plunges us into essentially some sort of depression era problem. And frankly, I don't want that. Do you guys want that? I don't think so.
Well, that's not what I proposed. To be
Well,
clear.
yeah, you proposed invading all of Latin America. So
Well, hold on.
I mean, you're kind
that
of
might have been me.
dumb
That-
fuck proposals.
That was Connor. Yeah, that was Connor.
No, you proposed
so what
invading
actually-
Latin America for drugs. That's right.
No, that's
Yeah, you were
no,
gonna
that's-
bomb the drug cartels.
Yeah,
I'd like to
that was
drone
your
check.
plan.
Yeah, I'd like to drone
Why would
check
he
the
invade a part that he's
drug
already
cartels,
bombed? There's
that's true.
nothing.
So really quickly, so what that's not what I'm proposing. I think that there are many illegal immigrants in this country that can be made citizens, right? They've been here for a very long time, they have families and have married and all this kind of shit. These people realistically should be on a path to citizenship. It doesn't make sense to throw these people out if they haven't like broken any other laws with their hair. What I'm saying is that we need to stop the bleeding, right? So what you're proposing, right, is that we just keep allowing these people into the country. As many want to come in, so long as the infrastructure supports it. That seems batshit insane to me. I think Connor and I have laid out a lot of reasons for that. That's batshit insane, and I haven't heard you respond to any of that.
I mean,
Right,
all
so
of your
what I'm wondering. Okay, again, given that we have a democracy, unfortunately, if we were to start allowing people in this country, 500,000 a year, $1 million a year, from just anywhere in the world, anyone who wants to come in, they can come here with their belief systems intact, all this kind of shit. Can you not like imagine a situation where this starts seriously impacting the way policies are voted on in this country, and policies that hurt the host nation, us, are implemented because, hey, now sections of the country are full of people from the Middle East or Africa or South America, and they have all these competing cultures and that just don't really mesh well with ours.
Damn, it's almost like how
300
democracy has
people.
worked ever since we were a democracy.
There are 300 million people in this world today that live in countries where you literally get executed if you're like an apostate, if you speak out against the religion, right? Why would you want those people these people support these laws? Why would you want
We have
those
people like that here.
So you want to bring more of them? You want more?
No,
People
no.
just tried to overthrow our
no.
government.
Let me answer
what
his
it would
fucking
take to
question.
overturn?
Let me answer the question.
Answer the question, and then we'll go to Supreme. And we're gonna move on from the subject soon, guys.
Yeah. So when we're talking about all of these like cultural issues, right? Frankly, I guess I just have more faith in my ability to convince people than other people on this panel. Okay, like when we're talking about people coming into this country, and like, oh no, they're going to be able to vote on our policies. Yeah, because they'll be citizens. They'll live here, and you know what? I'm okay with having to take on the burden of convincing them that I'm right.
That's one. That's ballsy of you. Two, can anybody on this panel tell me when the last abortion clinic bombing was? 1982. It was before
Is that the only?
fucking
Is that the only
born.
measure? Is that the only measure of violence against people who support abortion and women who are seeking out abortion?
Do we want to do comparative statistics on terrorism worldwide based off of ideology? Do we want to do comparative statistics based off of terrorism in the United States?
I'm just saying, if that's the measure that we're using for like violence based on how you feel about abortions. If we're using the measure that like bombing an abortion clinic is the only way that people who are opponents of abortion can commit violence against women and women who are seeking abortions, then I think that's a very myopic view.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to just jump in there for a second. Sorry.
But that also has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
And I mean, this is random, but abortion doctors have been assassinated. What happened a few years ago? In fact, like they just end up shooting them. They don't need to bomb the clinics, right? And to Maddie's point, that violence can come legislatively. Right? We can do lots of ways we can commit violence against people using the state if they are trying to exercise their rights. So, like,
people in Louisiana have been stalked by Catholic people who stand outside of abortion clinics.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's been going on for years.
Okay.
So
I'll just yield
them,
because
right?
it's an uphill battle. But at the same time, if we start getting into comparatives or alternatives, this is not going to be a pleasant conversation. Basically,
listen.
What's that?
I don't think this relates to this topic. There's a reason I haven't engaged with any of this culture war bullshit. It's irrelevant. Okay, listen. I'll tell you why. The number of Mexican immigrants living in the United States is, despite the fact that we've had higher and higher numbers of Mexican immigration entering the United States, the total population of Mexican immigration or immigrants living in the United States is lower than it was 12 years ago. I think we peaked in 2008 or 2012 or something like that. Now, how could that be? Why do you think that is, Connor?
Repeat the stat that you're saying.
Sure. The total number of Mexican immigrants living in the United States is lower today than it was about a decade ago. How can that be if we're getting like higher and higher numbers of Mexican immigration every year?
Probably because they're adopting our birth rates.
No, because they're leaving. More like there is data to suggest, especially
Is it
by
because of our
Mexican
dog
census.
shit economy? What is this point?
Well, that is
Jesus,
part of it.
man.
A lot of them, we did get mass waves of immigration after 2008 because of the 2008 financial crisis, and it hit everybody. You know, it hit our nearest neighbors, of course, especially.
Okay.
So this is why I haven't engaged on this at all. The idea that there's going to be some like takeover of the U.S. Constitution where we're going to get all these constitutional amendments because a million or two Mexicans want to be here every year or something like that. Just like I'm not going to engage with it because it's irrelevant. It's never going to happen.
Mexican.
It's not.
So-
It's so mind-bogglingly
It is-
not
it is
irrelevant.
primarily-
it's
it's
actually
almost half-
frustrating.
It's almost
actually
half
super
Mexicans, right? Like you
frustrating.
brought that up earlier,
like-
right, Doobie?
So-
It's a
No,
weird,
okay,
it's
Supreme,
a weird
you're addressing a different
hypothetical.
topic. No, it's not okay.
No,
I
like
don't know- I don't
you're
know why
like,
this
what
is
if
so hard for you guys.
China
I
got
don't know why
together
this
and
is
like
so fucking hard for you. No,
sent
listen.
10 million
That's
people to
not
the
what we're
U.S.
talking
to
about.
overthrow
That's
the
not what we're
government.
talking about.
Gibby, finish up, and then we're moving on.
Okay. So I genuinely don't understand what this is hard for you guys. You guys are presenting us with a policy that is basically, as Jack said, there should be no arbitrary limitations. So long as we have the infrastructure, we should allow them in. That's the policy you're presenting us with, right? So that is what I'm responding to. And it seems to me, not in today's situation, that is not the policy we have today, Supreme. So that's why we're not seeing these consequences that I'm talking about. It seems to me that if we were to have a policy like that, we would see a massive surge of immigration from all over the world, not just Mexico, all over the fucking planet, because there'd be no reason for them not to come from these shithole countries if they can get into the US for free, right? So it just seems like you guys are presenting us with the policy. I'm giving you the consequences of that. Hey, we might have 1 million people come, 2 million people a year, 3 million people a year from countries that have totally incompatible cultures, and you're saying, oh well, that just won't happen. You know, that's not a problem. You know,
I don't even care if it does happen because
Yes,
what is
you
1
do.
million?
Yes,
Hold
you
on,
fucking
care.
I'll tell you why.
You're
Because a
telling me-
million
you're telling me you
people.
don't
I'm telling
care.
you why
Okay,
right
no.
now. Because a
You're
million
telling me you don't
people is
care. Oh my
1/3 of a percent of the voter turnout of like the voting population. So
Every
you're
year.
not going to
You
overturn
have-
constitutional
Okay,
law.
so Connor, you can freak out during your closing statement because we're gonna move on.
Holy shit.
Gibby, finish your point, and then we're moving on.
It just seems like you're saying, you can't imagine. It seems like you're taking your hypothetical, you're taking the positives of that, which is the economy be better, sure, maybe, and you're totally ignoring the negatives, right? And it seems to me like this would result in gay rights, women's rights, trans rights, all these things that we've been fighting for decades being set back 50 years, 60 years. For what? For the fucking economy? And you'd also hypercharge the religious institutions in this country that we already have a massive problem with. And you say that the Republican Party is already anti all these things. Why would you want more Republicans in this country? It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Okay.
I just want to be. I just want you to be clear.
Supreme.
sorry.
This will be your. Honestly, that was Doobie's. Supreme, make yours. Keep them brief. And we're going to go around so everyone gets a chance. So go ahead, Supreme.
Oh, sorry. These are closing statements.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. In general, there are a lot of different policies we can do to ameliorate the issue at the southern border. A lot of those people come here for economic opportunity. There is a potential risk of undertaking too many costs or too high of costs to try to establish communities or cultivate, infrastructure to help support life there while those people await, whatever process is necessary to allow them into the country. It can go anything from we can sort of create trade deals with border towns the way that we have in the past, where we loosen restrictions, with trade between towns that are very close between the U.S. and Mexican border to allow people to live and stay there and find economic opportunity that they came here to seek, and also some legal protections as well. This has to come through cooperation through the United States and Mexican governments. The more this happens, the better it is. Trade policies between the United States and Central American countries to try to encourage better economic conditions in these countries and better rule of law, because that is one of the biggest problems facing those countries, and it is one of the primary reasons that people leave is high corruption, failed legitimacy of a lot of the governments, a lot of corruption in the highest forms of government, more cooperation with the United States to make good for the mistakes that we committed over the past 100 years in our foreign policy in Central and South America. These are all pathways forward. But the idea that we can just spend infinite money to just try and support as many people as possible in one given place. I just want people to realize that this is kind of an exceptionalist view. It's a nationalist view. It comes at the detriment of those host countries, and it may come to the detriment of those people long-term or short-term as well. And that, encouraging this may cause people to suffer. We may not be able to raise the resources necessary to do that. And that's it.
Okay. Maddie.
Yep. I'm going to use the word. I want to advocate for a compassionate approach to immigration. Also, I want it to be known that, I know, I'm sorry, Connor, and I want to make sure that it's clear that when I refer to compassion or that something's compassionate or not, I'm referring to policies. And that's not saying that like someone like, oh, that is, you're not compassionate for human beings. It's like, no, I just mean that like in the way our country approaches immigration, I want to ensure that those policies are centered in compassion and empathy, and making it so that those people can have a better chance to be productive members of our society. And I mean, anything I think that I the point that I made or would make, I already made in the debate. So I cede my time.
Iris, please.
I guess I would just say that I think we should learn from history, you know, and we should see what things happened to the indigenous Americans when the illegal Europeans came over and settled without the consent of the people who already lived there. So I feel like consent is kind of important in that case. And yeah, like that's all.
Rose.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to use my closing statement to do a couple of things. Number one, I want to clarify the thing I said about legalizing, decriminalizing drugs. I do believe that generally in a lot of places we can move towards some level of legalization and decriminalization. The point I was making before, I saw a lot of confusion in Prime's chat about it, is that, for example, Portugal's blanket decriminalization is probably not a good idea to just put, over all countries. At this point in time. So that's just a bit of a clarification there. Generally, I think most countries could do some degree of like legalization or decriminalization, but just not Portugal blanket decriminalization yet. On top of that, I just want to use the closing statement to just summarize my basic stance on this. So number one, big fan of immigration. It's not going to solve the root cause of these issues. However, it is still an important way to I believe it's still a morally good thing. I believe it's still an economically prosperous thing to do. And I believe it still has some effect on the root causes, remittances. I do still believe that we do need long-term solutions, such as, for example, the soft and hard political and economic power that people like Connor Points, for example, talked about here. I do believe that integration is important when accepting large amounts of people. And integration is the type of thing that requires government resources. And this discussion is taking place in connection to the United States of America. And the United States of America do not by any means lack the resources to ensure good economic integration that do a lot of things like, cutting the harmful, I suppose, cultural political attitudes that Doobie and Connor Points have talked about continuously during this. On top of that, however, to Doobie and Connor Points' defense, I see a lot of people on my side, on the progressive side of this panel, sort of implying that the assertion that you might have like 1 million people arriving within a short period of time is something that is absurd. I mean, given all the things that are happening right now geopolitically and the fact that we're like at the doorstep of climate change right now, I don't think that's, like an unrealistic hypothetical to draw from at all. And I think that's something that should be answered and should really be talked about. And throughout the mall that I listed previously, I perfectly can answer that. Now, I think Connor Points is about to speak soon, so I'm going to preemptively make a bit of a jab at American again. I ride ambulances for fun. If you guys did it, you would go instantly bankrupt. That's going to leave that there just preemptively because I'm sure he's going to say some Europhobic shit during his statement. And yeah, now I'm going to actually go to the toilet, whose, by the way, pipes are not frozen over because of the glorious national and EU regulations we have that the Americans are lacking.
Wow.
So yeah, thank you very much.
This guy's great. This guy's great.
He's fantastic.
You,
yeah.
You're amazing. Connor, you can respond vehemently.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'll try to be not as vehement as possible. So basically, like we are fundamentally experiencing demographic shift inside the United States. By 2050, we're basically expecting the European population, non-Hispanic, to reach around 42%. Now, whether or not that's a big deal depends on how much you give a shit about it. I don't necessarily give a shit because a majority of my friends, law enforcement, military people, all that kind of stuff, they're basically deracinated Hispanic people. They speak English. They like hip hop. They like punk. They basically like to get drunk with me. I don't give a shit about ethnic origin or nationality or anything like that. What I do care about, though, is they're constitutionalists. They care about the United States of America. They care about freedom of speech. They care about the Second Amendment. They care about the Fourth Amendment. They care about the limited powers of government. They care about being productive, all of those kinds of things. And those are things that I do give a shit about. So the Republican strategy that I think do be implied, but might not have brought up completely, is the second that the Republican platform realizes that they can appeal to social conservatives conservatives from Latin America as they immigrate into the United States. And if they stop giving a shit about immigration, they can basically stomp the fuck out of Democrats for the next fucking millennia. You guys are fucked, and you're probably going to grow on this shit, but it's okay. Anyways, finally, what could happen, though, because Republicans are dumb fucks, is that they'll just keep being assholes to immigrants. And as a result, the Democrats will hold a disproportionate power in society. The reason why I care about this and the reason why there's cultural impacts that I give a shit about, as much as Supreme doesn't seem to care about cultural impacts, is I do care about firearms. I do care about the balance of power between civilians and the government. I think it's fundamental to freedom. I think it's fundamental to society. I think it's fundamental to basically human nature that civilians have the ability to destroy their own government. I literally believe this. It's almost like a religious tenet. So the fact that Democrats might become infinitely powerful, not infinitely powerful, but disproportionately powerful due to increased immigration over the next 30 or 40 years, does threaten me, because basically the current president of the United States has repeals or gun control limitations that I find onerous, nefarious, intimidating, scary. And the fact that those things might have more political clout in the future is a threat to my culture and like what I give a shit about, almost on a religious level. So yeah, I care, and there's cultural impact. Acting like two final points. So acting like, number one, that basically there's no cultural impacts, or these cultural impacts doesn't matter, is fucking ridiculous. Like I can't emphasize enough how much having 10 million people per year, like every year for a decade, and then like freezing immigration at that point, having 100 million people show up who have a completely alternative perspective on law, culture, religion, the role of religion within society, abortion, trans rights, gay rights, progressivism, freedom of speech. The fact that you guys seriously think, like maybe this is a straw man, but the fact that you think that people just show up to our country and they're just like, oh yeah, Western liberal democracy, rule of law, freedom of speech, gay rights, trans rights, it's great, I fucking love all of it. It's so mind-numbingly delusional that I almost stroked out. That's very normal for me to almost stroke out on a fucking panel show, but at the same time, like, I can't believe it's being said out loud seriously, as if that's a fucking serious statement. So with that, I still like you guys a lot. I do think you're smart, even if you say things that make me want to fucking like burst a blood vessel in my eye. And with that, I yield.
One day we'll get there, buddy. One day we'll get there.
Yeah, probably.
Jack.
Yeah, so I think Roserist actually brought up one of the best points here at the end, and that is that it is not actually ridiculous for a million new refugees to be at our border. The issue is, in the hypothetical, they were coming like tomorrow, right? In reality, we can generally tell when we're going to get some influx of refugees. We generally have time to prepare, whether that's because we've artificially created that time via policy, or because we know that, global climate change is happening, and we know that there are going to be climate change refugees by the millions. So that is definitely an issue, though I think that is more of an argument to my point that we should be building up the infrastructure that we need today, rather than building it up the day before they come. And this is just going to be a reality. People are going to be here whether we want them to be here or not. And frankly, we should be building the infrastructure so that we can take these people, put them to work in our society, and it doesn't become like this huge fucking issue that completely dominates our society and our world. That being said, I definitely think that there are other pressures that the panel hasn't really explored very much. Even if we completely eliminated the legal hurdles for people coming here, there are still a lot of other issues when it comes to what determines people's migration patterns, whether they're social, economic, political in nature, whatever. In fact, you can look at this even in the European Union. When Greece was going through their giant economic downturn, fewer than 1% of Greeks moved to Germany, even though wages were double that of what Greeks could get. And we see the same in the United States too. Puerto Rico's been a huge mess, and in 2014, right after one of those gigantic storms, I forget which one, around 84,000 of 3 million Puerto Ricans decided to move to the mainland. Okay, and so despite the fact that the average construction worker's salary in Puerto Rico at the time was around half of what it would be in the United States mainland. So there are other reasons that people migrate other than just purely economic reasons. And even though a lot of people report wanting to come to the United States, there are still a lot of other barriers in place that prevent everybody from being able to come here, that prevent effectively that infinite immigration that everyone seems to be so scared of. And so I think that, we should be building up the infrastructure that allows us to take and integrate these people. And I do not think that would lead to bad outcomes. I think that would mostly lead to pretty positive outcomes for everybody involved, including people, in the United States who are already citizens.
Thanks so much. Johnny, finish us out on this, please.
Alrighty. So, if the US is so shitty at doing things with immigration, supposedly, then maybe we just need some new blood. Maybe we need to hire more Americans in order to teach people languages, in order to be foreign liaisons and counselors and immigration liaisons. And maybe we need to actually, to Connor's point about the larger cultural impact that immigration will have, maybe we need to actually use the Americans who care so much about our culture and about bringing in new, fresh, like wonderful people from other countries. We need to actually, we're affected by the expectations that we set. Okay. And so if we make a better name for Americans, because we have a shit name in other countries, I don't know if you guys know that. Other countries talk shit about us all the time, especially Europeans. I'm sure Rose is aware.
Yep.
So if we build up a better American culture and we set expectations that, like, oh, kids can specialize in a language, they can specialize in a South American language, they can specialize in a European language, and they can go and they can grow up to be something that actually helps their country. And they don't have to be programmers. We talk all the time about how hard it would be to uh, train people to be programmers who have had other skills their whole life. It's not that hard to learn another language to the point that you can travel. It's really not. It's not nearly as hard as coding. So I would love to see this be a whole new industry, immigration help, shit like that. Maybe we should be looking on the positive side. And that's it.
Okay. Thanks so much. All right. You guys, of course, don't know the meaning of brief. I'm gonna have to time you for the next one. This was a really good conversation. I extended it because I thought we were having an interesting time here. And you guys had a lot to say here, more than I thought you would actually. So I'm curious how you react to the next topic. I don't remember us doing a topic quite like this, at least not in the Reverie, at least not in the last like fucking 6 months. So I'm really curious as to what you'll have to say. Topic 2, and it'll be our last topic because we don't have any more time with this. But topic 2. In Boston, a group of parents is suing the public schools system for altering how elite schools admit students. There is a subsection of the school system that admits kids based on an entrance exam. However, due to COVID fears, that requirement is being waived for at least a year. Instead, students will be admitted using zip codes to place students along with their GPA, with priority given to low-income areas. Advocates see this as a way to diversify schools and keep kids safe during the pandemic. Opponents say that this is a backdoor way to pick and choose kids based on race by using zip codes as a proxy. Do you support this change? Should it be extended beyond the pandemic? Are entrance exams an unfair selection criteria? Would a change like this ultimately degrade the academic excellence of these schools? Okay, all right. So again, for my audience, Boston, and this might be happening in other areas as well. But this article was about Boston. Is that they have these special schools that admit people through entrance exam, very tough entrance exam. It tends to be quite white in these schools, and because of COVID, they're waiving that entrance exam and using this other system that might diversify it as well. But there's a backlash happening and lawsuits are flying, so that's what's happening. All right, so we'll start with Johnny, and so I'm gonna have to time you guys. We got to get moving. Go ahead,
Oh,
Johnny.
yeah. Okay. I don't have a lot to say on this except something that I think is centrist, but that may actually piss people off. I think that before we completely do away with these schools that do very well and how they choose children, I think that we should actually improve the situations in the grade school programs that lead up to these entrance exam only high schools. And I think that if that over a period of a decade or so, if those new material conditions don't affect how many children are being able to make it from these lower income areas traditionally into these entrance exam only high schools, maybe we can re-examine it and see if we need to do something else. But I don't see why improving the material conditions of a low advantaged area isn't the first choice.
Okay, Riverboat Jack.
Honestly, shout out to Kamani James, who's quoted in the article, basically saying that he'd rather abolish the exam schools and equitably fund public education because, frankly, that's the real crux of the issue, right? Like the reason the exam schools exist in the first place is facilitated by rich people who want their kids to go into the best schools possible and where they can rub elbows with other rich kids who have the same opportunities. But the reality is that just gatekeeps poor kids out of those schools because their families don't have the resources to send them to tutoring specifically for these super hard tests that aren't taught in the public school system. So yeah, I say abolish these schools altogether and fund the public schools.
Okay, great. Let's go to Connor.
Great. So basically, I went to invert what Riverboat Jack just said. Find out what the fucking good schools are fucking doing, and then replicate that outside. But we do fundamentally agree on this, which is basically like that the education program across the board needs to be fundamentally improved. For this temporary measure during the COVID, basically granting access to schools that students might otherwise not have access to based off of entrance, I think is genius. I think it's actually going to be great for the people who actually live in that community to have an educational opportunity that they otherwise might not have access to. But the reform that actually needs to come is basically what I would want to do is I would want to have a tiered education system, 3 tiers that are available to everybody. One is basically I need a high school diploma in order to work at McDonald's. That's the first tier. Second tier is normies, just average education, maybe slightly above average education to push people academically. Third one is basically the gifted or international baccalaureate program. I know my good friend Rose Wrist over here is a graduate of the International Baccalaureate Program, which is an elite level academic achievement that basically grants you access to colleges worldwide, not just across the United States. So basically, the problem with American education is it's one size fits all, and it shouldn't be. And with that, I yield.
Okay. I am not at
You're right
all
back.
surprised that Rose graduated from IB.
I haven't graduated yet, to be fair. I'm set to graduate this year.
How
old are you?
17.
I'm 17.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You're so smart and eloquent.
I know.
love you.
I'm just,
I want you on my shelf.
We have a second. I know. I was thinking about this because we have a
Respectfully.
second poll as well. We have another Rose. We have another person within my Okay, how did he get over there? Sorry, I'm pulling Connor back in. We have a second person in my channel, a mod. His name is Polar's World. He's 17, also quite intelligent. I would love for you to debate something. I don't know what it is, but something. I think you'd actually quite enjoy
kids
it.
are all right.
What is this ageism crime?
Yeah, exactly. Pit the kids against each other for your cruel entertainment. Huh?
Damn right, actually, yes. For ratings.
Kid
Alright.
blood sports. Yeah.
As long as I get to plug my shit really hard, I'm here for it.
All
okay?
right, fair enough. But please
so-
go ahead.
With that said, I want to mention here that I'm going to idpoll the shit out of this. I am a student. I am in high school. I have not graduated yet. So if anyone disagrees with me, you're just student phobic. I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. Okay. So points on this. Number one, testing, like the type of testing we do right now, where we run tests, GPAs, international baccalaureate, grading, numbered systems. These are all shit. Standardized testing in general is shit. I want to do away with that entirely because there's just such a massive, flow of negative effects from inequality to not actually demonstrating ability to coercing teachers and making them super stressed, for like a profit motive, for like showing the best grades to get better funding, students actually being better at taking tests and actually representing their knowledge. Standardized testing is complete shit. Second point, I am in favor of this because anything that brings us closer towards a planned public schooling system where we get rid of as much school choice as possible, wonderful, love to see it. I am a public school extremist by virtue of living in Sweden and seeing what the charter school reforms have done to our educational systems. It is garbage, and I don't want any other country to be in the position that we're in right now. So reasons why I don't like school choice, two basic ones. Inequality runs rampant. Segregation is also very common when it comes to this. Segregation is also heavily tied to housing, but if you have like good public schooling policy, you probably also have good public housing policy, hopefully, but we'll see. But that's just general reasons why I don't like school choice. So generally, I want to move towards a completely public schooling system in which there is no school choice. Now, 2 points just to pick a little bit at what Connor Point said before he got deleted from the call. Number one, replicating the methods that certain successful schools are having right now is not going to be a viable way to run, the schools in general. A lot of the schools that work right now have vastly different, number one, funding levels. Number two, international backing. Number three, constituencies. We know that students from higher socioeconomic conditions are going to have an easier time to learn. And because of that, the schools individually have to put less resources and prioritize different things. So, having sort of like one golden system for all schools is going to be pretty difficult, especially with that public overtime thing. Number one, final thing, the tiers thing that he mentioned there. Key thing with that is who picks where the tiers go to. Are the students going to pick it? Are the parents going to pick it? Socioeconomics, yada, yada. Where decide. Okay, there you go. That's my thing.
Once again, wonderfully brief. Thanks so much. But all right, I'll move on to Doobie.
I actually don't like that these schools exist in the first place. I think among the nation's first priorities should be the education of its people, right? Giving people the tools to better themselves, better their communities, all these things. So I'd prefer a system in which, whatever resources or things these schools are doing that or have access to are doing to get to the point where they're exam schools and they're like specialized schools, I think we should probably take some lessons from that and apply to the rest of the school system. That being said, given that these things do exist and have existed, I don't know if it one thing I worry about, I don't really care about, it's gonna, hurt people in rich neighborhoods and all that. I don't care about that. What I'm worried about is that given that the students that are currently going to the schools had to take an exam to get in there, and a lot of the coursework that's being given to these students is probably a little higher level than the schools and the other public schools are presenting to their children. I worry that if we send people there based on zip code and not some kind of entrance exam, you're setting them up to fail, right? You're setting them up to be in a school system where in classes where they are being presented with ideas that they're just not prepared for, right? And that can be really discouraging to people, I think. So that's what I worry about. I worry that the kids that are being sent there based on the zip code are set up to fail, and the ones that are there currently are going to be affected negatively because they have an influx of people within the school that don't really, I don't want to say deserve to be there, don't really have the education or the educational backbone to be there. That's my only concern. If that can be like remedied somehow, then that's fine. I don't care.
Maddie.
I'll keep it brief. So as a whole, entrance exams don't do a lot to actually put the gifted students that end up going to the school in any position to perform academically better. What the data shows us, and I'm going to share this article with you. There's something I really care about, just to preface, because I was one of those kids who it's like you score 99% on a test, and then I got to go to a special middle school program for kids that are gifted and talented. It was literally called GATE, Gifted and Talented Education. And it's crazy because it's not actually a good reflection of how well a kid might do. In fact, how well kids perform on tests is more tied to their socioeconomic level than it is their actual intellectual capacity. And what the data shows us is that when you have this two-track system, for kids who score low on those tests, if you put them in a higher class, they are actually more likely to improve academically than they are to, if they were to go into the lower track, they end up suffering. And it's interesting, the kids that score high, there's really no change in their academic achievement, whether they go into the high track or the low track. They tend to still perform at a high level. So there's no point to separate the two, and all it does is just exacerbate the opportunity gap and disparity in academic opportunity for people of different classes and socioeconomic backgrounds.
Supreme.
Yeah, this one's interesting. I mostly agree with Rosewrist. I like the idea of just, the equality of outcome in terms of school, like equitable funding for different schools and stuff. And the reason I personally don't like school of choice is that it has a tendency to cause a sort of ebb and flow in terms of funding. And similarly to my objections with like mass immigration at the southern border or something like that. When you offer a school of choice to parents, they're going to tend to send their children to the best schools, the schools that are the highest rated. But without a clear timeline of how to plan for that sort of influx of students, then you get like the funding that's allocated to that education system suddenly the cost, it tends to increase for per capita for the quality of the education that people are getting. So the quality of the education of that school per school of choice tends to go down. Other schools, the quality goes up because they suddenly have more money than they need and less students, and it causes this ebb and flow, and it causes a lot of friction. I would be more in favor of finding ways to just like create, federal standards, for which I don't think there really is any. There aren't really a whole, like, the federal government doesn't really put its hands in K-12 education a whole lot. And federal schools tend to be some of the highest ranked in terms of like all the schools nationwide. So, some sort of program that just like tries to create equitable outcomes in quality of education is probably better. In terms of Boston, I don't know how many of you guys actually looked at the, the policy itself. Doobie, I know you were worried about people just being pulled from zip code, but it is the highest achievers from each zip code. It's combined by GPA, and then I think they're going to like write a, like a little blurb or like a, the history, their academic history. So it is the highest achievers per zip code, and they have it allotted by zip code. So it's going to be like an equal percentage from each of the zip codes that would be eligible. And if you guys look at like the census.org maps for ethnicity and for income in the Boston area, you can see that it's like 1-to-1. It perfectly collates, where like ethnicity perfectly comports to income in these areas. Now, it gets a little bit fucky because like Asian American is like, or Asian is like a very broad category, and there are a lot of like really broad. Like China is a very big country, and even out of China alone, there's like a large disparity in the amount of income that people who claim to have heritage from China, can tend to have. And these zip codes, I'm not an expert on gerrymandering, but it looks like the districts in Boston are already like pretty well uncracked and unstacked. A lot of those zip codes tend to share a lot of low income, non-white, populations with high income, primarily white populations. So like zip code may be a less than perfect solution here as well for that reason.
Okay, let's jump into it.
So, Connor, I just wanted to point out that, like, and Rosarus kind of touched on this too, but like the big thing that these exam schools are doing is that they are selecting for wealthy students, which means that they are selecting for the wealthy families behind those students, which means that, like, their endowment fund is $60 million for that top performing school. They get that money by catering to the wealthy, and also by catering to the wealthy, they have smaller class sizes. They have, all of these things that we already know works for public education too. The issue is we just don't fund it. And by we, I just mean Republicans. Republicans don't want to fund schools. They prefer school choice because they like funneling money through private institutions that claim to have better outcomes, but are really just catering to the wealthy. Like Emperor, sorry, I'm having a brain fart here. Sorry, Supreme. For some reason, I wanted to say Emperor. But
I'll allow it.
Palpatine.
But like you pointed out, they're using GPA and zip code. So like they're not using people who are going to underperform, and they're not like catering to people who who are incapable of rising to that material. The issue is almost entirely that their exam structure is built around catering to the wealthy, which is further emphasized by the fact that up until 2020, the exams were explicitly based on stuff that was not being taught within the public school curriculum.
Yeah, can I address? So basically, like, yeah, I think lefties, progressives, liberals, basically everybody who's not a Republican, needs to turn around and beat the dog piss out of the right with this talking point. Because basically what's going on effectively is we always talk about equality of opportunity and not equity. So on the right? So we basically say, oh, well, we're giving these kids education. We're giving these people opportunities, and they're just not taking advantage of the opportunities that we're giving them. They're not mentioning the fact that public schools are dog shit. They're not mentioning the fact that there's no universal pre-K. They're not mentioning the fact that basically college is prohibitively costly to certain groups. They're not mentioning the fact that I think our good friend Destiny pointed this out, that basically when it comes to college, it's not necessarily the cost of the school that's necessarily the prohibiting factor. It's actually whether or not you have to work in order to survive while you're going to school. And basically that can factor whether or not you choose to go to college instead of supporting your family. So we're not actually creating equality of opportunity. And kind of the similar thing that sold me on universal healthcare was that if rich people are part of the system, if they're part of the education process, if they're part of the healthcare system, and they don't have a choice about whether or not they're a part of it, they're going to want to fund it because they're the people who are subject to the same levels of care and the same levels of education as everybody else on the fucking road. So the reason why I want to beat the dog piss out of the right on this is because if you want to deny that systemic racism exists, then you have to eliminate the factors that go into systemic racism. If we solve universal quality education, if we solve universal pre-K, if we solve universal healthcare, and at the same time, some people are just acting like assholes, those people are assholes. You gave them the fucking opportunity. But right now, we're not doing that. We're not controlling for a single fucking variable that basically contributes to people being sucked into criminal organizations, terrorist organizations, anything like that. We are not solving people's desperation, and then we're blaming them on the back end when they're desperate. And that's incredibly frustrating for me personally.
And I just wanted to touch real quick on the fact that like Boston is one of the most segregated cities in like the United States, like because of policies like redlining and stuff like that. So when they are like to like kind of the counter arguments credit, like it is kind of a policy that is meant to be not necessarily meant to be along racial lines, but the way that Boston itself is constructed due to a history of racism does mean that zip code is along racial lines in Boston particularly.
It is or it isn't. Is this open discussion now?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
I just want to say one of the challenges to this, I think this sort of would alleviate maybe Doobie's concerns with this, but like if you look at the zip codes of Boston and you collate it with the income and then the plurality metrics, like using the actual census data, like a lot of these zip codes, for example, that have the poorest communities that tend to be Hispanic and Black, it usually for Boston, it tends to be Hispanic people. Like the Hispanic enclaves have the lowest income, followed by Black with the next highest, and then like the lower income Asian communities, and then white, and then the higher income Asian communities. A lot of these zip codes will share the higher income white communities with the low income Black or Hispanic communities. So if it's all coming out of the zip code, if we are to concede that this is a bit reductive, but if we're to concede that that income, household income, is the highest predictor or is the greatest predictor of like academic achievement, then what comes out of those zip code is going to be from like the high income white areas, because they share the zip codes with the low income Black areas. There are no zip codes that are completely enveloped by low income Black or Hispanic areas.
Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
Oh, hey, I just wanted to actually talk about what you said in your opening statement, Connor, about having like tiered diplomas. Louisiana actually does that, and I was looking at what they call it now. When I was in high school, it was called Core 4, but now it's called the Louisiana Believes program, I believe, and it's called it's like basically Louisiana offers about $2,000 a year for your whole bachelor's degree if you get what's called TOPS, and that's like a Louisiana specific in-state tuition payment. And you're only eligible for it if you get the Core 4 diploma, which is like it has all of your different classes in the college requirements, and B, you make good enough grades. So underneath that Core 4 diploma, you also have the tier just for getting your high school diploma. It's almost as good as getting a GED, except I'm not sure. I don't even know if you would be technically eligible to go to college in a lot of places, at least in this state, if you get that diploma. But what it does is it allows you to take fewer classes, and so you can take more pathways through what Louisiana does really well, which is actually doing nursing and welding programs in high school. So I would love to see statistics on that, but I'm just looking this up. If you guys want to hear more later, I'll continue.
Yeah, so I want to address that directly. So basically, my thing is like I think universal pre-K should be a thing. Okay, 100%. Because basically, like if you have a low income household, working class household, or whatever, what's preventing them from working or working as much as they want to? Childcare. And then also what's preventing that child from basically having academic competitiveness compared to their peers. Basically the fact that they're not getting, peer education, that's basically of high quality. When you're talking about the tiered system that I was talking about, I know that it can suck to be in that lower tiered system or whatever, but at the same time, you get what you put into it. The point of it is to be meritocratic. That way, if you're born into a shitty family, if you don't have access, mom, dad's a junkie, some, people aren't around, nobody's taking care of you or whatever, you still have the ability to climb into that higher tiered system if you demonstrate willpower and the ability to do it. Finally, when it comes to secondary education, I think secondary education should be a choice. By serving in the military, I had what's called the Montgomery GI Bill. I basically received a fairly low living stipend, and I also got free education for the public university of my choice within the state. I think that states within the United States should calculate what public tuition costs on a 4-year basis in order to get a 4-year degree. That should be your entitlement, and what you choose how you use that entitlement. So if you want to get a 4-year degree in underwater basket weaving, that's on you. If you want to get some basically like plumbing, welding, trades, anything like that, you can use that money towards that thing. What I don't want to see created is a shitload of people with underwater basket weaving degrees, but I do want people to have those choices and for the state to subsidize that, because I don't give a shit if my Walmart employee knows about Socrates. I would actually like my cashier to know some Greek philosophy.
Rose.
Okay, a few things. I've been zoned out for a second because I got an interesting thing that I wanted to respond to. But I want to go a little bit, just pick at your idea of the tiered system a little bit. In my view, the purpose of a good educational system should be not to sort of not to rely and not to exacerbate differences in socioeconomic conditions that modify people's ability to learn in an educational environment. I believe that the role of a good educational system should be to erase that as much as possible and to balance it out. The system that you're describing with the different tiers, depending on what you said, how much they demonstrate their willingness, are things that are entirely dependent on your parents, who they are, tutoring, socioeconomic condition in general, basically. So I do not want to tie level of education to things like this, which are heavily dependent on factors that go beyond the students' actual will to learn, and that instead intercept to things like, for example, socioeconomic condition, a fully public school system in which every single school is given the ability to provide whatever level of education or whatever specific direction or specialization for its students is probably the best way to go. Once again, I'm going to say this is probably the most my most important value statement in all of this. The role of education should not be to exacerbate socioeconomic differences. It should be to ignore them or to level them out as much as possible, to give everybody a fair shot regardless of who their parents are.
I would love to respond, but I'll let somebody else go.
I
I
mean,
agree with
if
that
you want
also.
if you want an actual just to go back to the Louisiana thing really quick, and then I'll let you talk quick, Supreme. Like Louisiana is the place where people have to crawl out of rural nowhere, and these tiered systems have actually been really beneficial in letting people be able to do things like go into college when they wouldn't otherwise be able to because they qualify for certain scholarships. Like these tiered systems encourage that sort of thing, so maybe that's just something for you to think about.
Yeah. One thing I think, my sister lives in Germany, and talking to her husband, I've learned a lot about their system. And to agree with Connor, one of the things I love about the German system is that there is almost a equal emphasis on apprenticeships and technical skill building, and these ways where people can still build a career. But you don't necessarily have to go the college route. So I absolutely agree that it would make our entire educational system far more equitable and serve more people if we gave an emphasis to things like technical schools or more specific job training. Because the reality is that not everyone should have to go to college, and frankly, not everyone wants to, and you don't necessarily need to in order to be a productive member of society. I also think that one of the things that ends up becoming a massive barrier, I mean, we've been talking about wealth and the track system, but part of that too is that for a lot of people, even if they qualified to go to college, they can't afford to. And they say, oh, well, you can take out student loans and this and that, but that's a barrier, because what you're essentially asking them is like, all right, like take out minimum like $75,000 and pay it back and be beholden to paying that back with interest for the next decade. And like, that's a massive ask. So if we wanted to generate more equity from our education system, serve more people, you would not only have this 2-track system, or like at least the option for people to pursue more like apprenticeship technical schools, but also we would, I mean, I'm a supporter of making all public education free, but even if we just reduce the cost that it costs for someone to go to a public university, that would generate far more equity.
Oh, I'm ready to fucking go. So, Supreme, you want to go or no?
I just want to ask the panel, does everybody understand the point that I made about how like separating this by zip code is still likely to make it so that every single person who attends this exam school is going to be a rich white or rich Asian person? Does everybody understand that I made that argument earlier?
I understand it.
It's probably
that's why I'm sorry. I just damn it. I just meant to say that essentially, like, yeah, and that's why I think that we should abolish these schools. This is why we should have just equitably funded public education.
So I think the concern there is that, like, you know, there maybe a diversity of tactics ought to be considered when it comes to education, and like there are going to be kids that are going to be held back by one sort of flatline standard, and by raising that standard, there are going to be a lot of kids that are left behind. And you know, that like having an exam school might be a good, or like a more prestigious school, or like an advanced placement school or something like that, or an accelerated program might be a good idea to facilitate for kids that would be applicable to that, because we are facing, you know, like internationally, we are facing a lot of competition with our education. India is like kicking our asses. India and China especially, like we're really having to contend on the world stage. Like we've got to be producing more engineers. We're a service-based economy. We have to be able to supply you know, like a labor force that's able to qualify for those types of jobs. So I don't know. I think this does
just unlimited immigration. We'll just steal all their people.
So we should just equitably fund education so that we can all
fund public education.
Good education.
Right, but the challenge is that creating one public standard may be restricting like certain students. Like a small
I fundamentally reject one public standard. I think that's the absolute worst thing you could do.
Well, you know what? Like, how about this? We'll start with creating one public standard that equitably funds all public schools, and then we can work on specializing from there. Okay?
Oh, I don't. No.
Well, how do you do that?
And also, like, I don't care how much money the schools receive per student. What I'm saying is that, like, these educations, like each student needs to have access to all 3 levels of their tiers depending on their individual ability. I know that Rose was talking about like intersectional things impacting those variables, but at the same time, basically, like, I don't give a shit. Like basically giving a kid who has a single parent who's a drug addict access to an international baccalaureate level program, K through 12, and access to funding to secondary education, whether that's trade or college, is infinitely better than what we're doing right now. And I would love to talk about what we're doing right now. If you, I'm just gonna go. Fuck it. All right. So, all right. So basically, Rose's primary objection was don't exacerbate the current situation. I used to go to the French school system. I loved it, but there was a fundamental cultural difference. And the cultural difference was the fact that education was treated like your job. If you were bad at academics, literally the school or the teacher would make fun of you to your face in front of your peers. And also your peers would make fun of you too for being an idiot. And what I mean by that is if you got a C, they basically made fun of you for not applying yourself to the lessons, literally to your fucking face. They were like, you're a dumb fuck. That's not going to fly in the American system. We're so fucking nice and gooey and friendly about fucking everything. You can't call kids dumb fucks to their faces. No matter how much I want to. Hold on. You can object in a second. I would love to call dumb fucks to their faces. But at the same time, it's literally a cultural difference. American kids would go home and cry and like slash their wrists and all that kind of stuff. European kids go, fuck, I'm going to go smoke cigarettes under the bleachers and then I'll come back and I'll apply myself because I'm not as emo as Americans. Describing the American education system as it is right now, okay? So right now, we actually have a problem that I think lines up with intersectionality. Basically, 20-1, educators are female to male. I think that's fucked up. I think conservatives and right wingers need to beat the dog shit out of the left wing on this and say, hey, you know what? Representation matters, intersectionality matters, and on top of that, we have a disproportionate amount of women raising our children. We need discipline inside our schools. We need male perspectives inside our schools. We need male educators to come into the education system. And you know what's happening? Shitty fucking discipline. The shittiest discipline you've ever fucking seen. My mom taught in a fucking public education system. She was a high school teacher, and basically she had 17, 18-year-olds, 200 pounds, 250 pounds, threatening to beat the fuck out of her. And she is a 60-pound woman telling them not to go to the fucking bathroom and smoke drugs and bang each other. So no, like, men need to come back into the education system. Discipline needs to be reinstilled. And yes, that does amount to either literally or metaphorically telling some kids that they're dumb fucks and putting them in a tiered system. Finally, last point before I yield. The cost of public education for college is $78 billion per year. It's literally 3% of our national budget as it stands right now. It is a cost that we can definitely accept. Educating the next generation is incredibly important. The fact that Republicans have ceded this ground to the left is incredibly fucking stupid. And with that, I yield.
Rose,
Okay,
and then
so,
Rose, then Johnny, then Jack.
Yeah, okay. So I want to go a few things here. Number one, you said infinite immigration again, so I have to come at one, jab at America. I can eat a wide variety of meals throughout my entire day. If you guys go to McDonald's, eat one cheeseburger, that's your calories for the day. You can't have anything more, okay? I enjoy a wide range of taste
But you
experience.
don't have In-N-Out Burger, so,
Well,
It's not that great. I
True.
wouldn't worry about it.
Oh, you just don't
there you go.
understand.
See? There's some
I'm a
equality.
Californian. I
Getting
say
it.
that.
You must be a
Exactly.
Shake Shacker.
Oh, I love
Maddie
Shake
keeps
Shack.
his
That's
uncle
true.
Tolman for the
Typical.
United States here. Yeah.
Rose, please.
Okay, my bad. So a few things here. So when it comes to exacerbating things, I'm a bit confused as what argument you were making here. You mentioned, like, you said that, your argument was that we shouldn't exacerbate things, and then you went on a bit of a tangent about like harassment or just like people treating students badly. I'm not quite sure what the connection is there. I'm going to try to understand what it meant. I agree that the system that you proposed, where every single student at least has access to this, is probably better than what exists right now, 100%. I'm just saying that the system I'm proposing is probably better than that, and you may agree on that as well. You may have just been focusing on the next step. I may have been focusing a bit more. Sure, 100% agree with that. Now, on to the things you talked about with men and discipline. Number one, when it comes to men, I agree. Fuck gender roles. We need more men in what's it called, in touch businesses industries, and more women in feeling industries. I think that's how the economists call them. Really weird terminology. It sounds really iffy, but that's how they're called anyway. The thing about discipline, though, in school, I don't disagree. I disagree with that. And also, through tying discipline inherently to men, you're perpetuating the exact types of gender roles that lead to men not being in education. Now, when it comes to the discipline in education as a thing, from the research I've seen that things like, for example, verbal harassment when doing bad on a test, for a small minority of people, it may have a positive effect. But overall, as a general structure within an educational system, it seems not to have the best outcomes. That's just from the literature I've read. I may be wrong. The support you had for it was, you talked about anecdotes, your French school or whatever.
These were only elite kids. It only works with like upper tier.
Yeah, well, some upper tier students, I suppose. And then you also have to talk about, what benefits does it give? They might perform better at the detriment of their mental health, because I can tell you that a lot of these upper elite kids or whatever are not doing wonderfully mentally. And I can say that both from a statistical perspective, when you look at, for example, the mental health levels of IB kids, and from like anecdotal experience, personally. So and people I've met and stuff like that. So that's my little
Let's
rebuttal
go to
there.
Johnny and Jack.
Okay, I right there at the end, you said something that I really want to steel man, which is Rose, the fact that so many people who come out of gifted programs, who come out of elite boarding school programs in high school, come out with severe mental health issues. That's something that is not talked about enough. And as somebody who was like, I'm not shit now, but like when I went to high school, I was trying to get out of bumfuck nowhere. And so I participated in a lot of things. I know a lot of these kids who ended up with full rides, like we did not make it because we had such shitty mental health from being burnt out. Like that's what's happening, and nobody's talking about it with high school kids, except if you're on TikTok, of course. So as far as schools and Connor, Like, my dude, I kind of agree with you because my mom was a teacher as well. Like, she wasn't a, teacher who wouldn't yell at kids or threaten them or whatever, but she was a teacher. And yeah, I actually think that for a lot of kids, it's too late after pre-K and kindergarten. There are such shitty programs in this country that are run by people who just think taking care of kids is easy, and so they're going to open a daycare. And that versus the kind of education that I admittedly got because my mom worked her ass off with 4 jobs when I was a kid to pay for private daycare. Like, we couldn't afford it after that. Of course, I went to public school, but it makes such a huge difference. And especially with the kind of things that really actually do affect kids' grades, like behavior in class and shit like that. Like, it's not just about how smart you are, it's also about how you apply yourself. Also, we do need more men in schools to be male role models, but not to beat the shit out of kids. Thank you. I yield my time.
Go ahead. This is a thing now.
Verbally.
Channel.
Metaphorically.
Let's go.
Yeah, fuck
Jack.
them kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, why this recurring sentiment of fuck kids is kind of strange to me, but
no,
yeah,
I don't want to fuck kids.
yeah.
Oh my god.
The idea that
Mm.
the idea that like leftists don't want men in schools is like I love you, Connor, but it's like really dumb as hell. Like, leftists want men and women and NBs everywhere. Okay, like,
But
we
you don't want our input.
we do want your
You don't want our
input.
recommendations. And
Feminism
I'll let you
value.
finish, but I want to address that.
All right, go for it. Oh, you're gonna let me finish. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. Like, feminism values the input of both men and women and seeks to benefit both men and women. Like, the underlying reason not a lot of men get involved in being teachers is the same reason that not a lot of men get involved in being nurses. It's seen as an effeminate job, and that goes back to like the early days of like teaching in America. And so like part of like feminism is, yeah, we want more men to overcome those stigma and like destigmatize this idea that this is a feminine profession that needs like a woman's touch, right? We want more men in that. I don't necessarily think that means that we need more discipline in schools. Like,
You're proving my point.
We know that like beating kids doesn't lead to better academic outcomes. Neither does like harassing and belittling kids or like telling them that they're dumb fucks who are incapable of achieving things. That actually has a proven negative effect on kids' academic performance. And you can like, there are many studies to that effect. And so like, if the goal is educating kids, then like, yeah, we need to have better approaches than just telling kids that they're dumb fucks. Because yeah, they are dumb fucks. They're kids.
All right, hold on. I would love to address all of this while it's still fresh, okay? I fundamentally disagree with this. Not because we can't find some middle ground or something like that, but just because I think there's a completely different perception. Okay. I would actually say that the same way that I was saying earlier, that you can't have a flourishing society without some level of security, is actually what's going on in American public education schools, particularly high school. You basically have antisocial kids coming from broken backgrounds who basically know that they're going to be adults soon, that they have very few prospects for basically employment. They have very few prospects for, basically a good, healthy, average, standard life. And as a result, they lash out. That's not their fault, but they're lashing out. And the way that they lash out is they bully the predominantly female staff of public education. And what happens, because this is dominated by females, is they say, oh, well, like, I don't know. I just don't want, he's a good kid with a good heart and like all that kind of shit.
No, that's not what happens. Holy fuck.
Oh, no. Hell no. You can't tell me that doesn't happen.
Okay, I just want to. I have
educators in my family. Like, what are you talking about?
I have one thing to interject, and then I'll let you ramble. But it's that the only time harassing kids about like a certain topic works
I'm
is
not
if
talking
that's
about hold up. No, we need to
clarify. You said calling kids dumb fucks. The only time that actually works to improve academic outcome is if that's the underlying issue. And frankly, it's almost
that
never
was a little bit of
issue.
hyperbole. But do you think that a teenager should be able to tell a 60-year-old woman that they can beat the fuck out of them, and then the administrator's response is, oh, well, they didn't actually hurt you, so go ahead and get back to class? Do you think that should be acceptable?
Maybe we can get a teacher expert on here, and we can like get
I
Yeah.
would
input on
love
how
to have
they
an
think
American
that should be
public
handled.
educator on this panel. All right. Anyways, but we got like 7 other points, and we'll
a
just
public
disagree on this
educator
one.
is not necessarily an expert in pedagogy, and this is like a really complex
Sure.
field. I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. But at the same time, should we be socially accepting like people basically committing the crime of assault and then just saying that they can go back
No
to
one's
class?
saying
Okay,
no one's
okay.
saying accept
They're,
it.
they're,
Has anybody
they're
taken
again,
this
they're
position?
children.
I don't know why.
They
Yeah.
are
Teach
not
them.
children.
Okay, dude.
This is fucking no,
Oh, man.
hell no.
Here we go.
Basically, when you're talking about 15 to 18, you're not talking about an 8-year-old. And basically, to contextually say that these people are the fucking same is insanity. So no, I reject it, and I have 7 other points. Prime, can I
They're
please do
Yeah,
them?
children.
I'm sure you
What
do.
do you think you should
No.
treat them as adults?
No.
You should just beat the shit out of those kids.
No, and that's a fucking straw man if I ever fucking heard
it-
one.
it
What are you
definitely
talking
was.
about?
It definitely was.
So okay,
Okay, thank you.
all right. We'll go to Rose afterwards, but just before that, like Connor, like why you keep bringing this one thing up? Yeah, look, I was a kid, right? Believe it or not, right? One of those days, I was a
What?
kid. Yeah, I know, right? Shocking, but I was a kid, and I was a kid that had to go through some pretty bad schools, right? Like, so if you're talking about violence and harassment towards the staff, yes, I'm definitely aware of that. We're all aware of these things, right? Especially if for those of us who didn't have the privilege to go into those elite schools, right? Yeah, but like, I don't see what the larger point is. Yeah, kids can act
Were you able to
badly.
learn? Were you able to learn in those environments?
No, but that wasn't simply because of like the kids were just rowdy. It's more like these kids had anger issues and coming from terrible household situations, right? Possibly household situations that were exacerbated by the fact that those neighborhoods lacked resources, right? So
Sure.
maybe addressing that would be a bigger issue, right? Yeah, these kids are lashing out, and yes, of course they do need structure. That's a thing that needs to happen as well. Granted, right? And I want male educators as well. But none of it, like I don't know what their end goal is with just saying this over and over again.
Okay, let me get to the point then.
Okay.
So fundamentally, we agree on these. Okay, so basically, high school is way too late. People are dealing with intersectional fucking problems that are already fucking them up. We have to address the intersectional problems in order to make sure that you're giving them the best shot possible.
Okay.
All right. So feminism does not value the input of men and women equally. Okay, it just fucking doesn't. Because you know what my suggestion is? If you had a 50-50 split between men educators and women educators, you wouldn't even have students willing to threaten 60-year-old women in the fucking hallways, because
What
there would
about
be a
non-binary
40-year-old. Hold on, I'm not done. I'm not even close to done. Because you would have a 40-year-old man across the fucking hallway who says, if I see that shit again, I'm gonna throw you into the fucking locker, you dumb fuck.
That's what happened.
And basically, hold on, Jesus Christ, you guys can all
Adding
attack me
more
when I'm
men
done.
never
Think I'm
decreases
done, you're gonna
violence.
attack me.
Did you
Right.
not have any men in your high school? Like, damn.
No, we didn't. We had 20 to
Why?
1 female
Because you're-
educators.
Gotta
Okay,
have
hold on.
that
Let me
Men are
let me
peaceful.
get points and then attack it. Jesus Christ. All right. So you're not valuing my masculine input at this point. All right. So anyways.
No, I just think you're
effeminate job.
older, Connor,
Shut
and
up.
times have changed.
Treaty, please let me go. Let me go.
Connor, go
All
ahead.
right. To address the fucking effeminate job cultural perception, you're absolutely right. This is a perception that needs to be completely destroyed inside the United States of America. You want to know why? Because there's awesome things that you can teach kids. You can teach fucking wrestling. You can teach fucking shop. You can teach all these gender essentialist masculine fucking trades that men would be interested in talking about. Not only that, but basically dealing with kids and raising the second generation should be viewed as much as a responsibility of the masculine side of society as much as it is the feminine side of society. And to further address this with the fucking nursing example, do you know what nurses deal all fucking day? They deal with the ER. They deal with blood. They deal with guts. They deal with shit. That is a crazy masculine, like stereotypically gendered masculine fucking role. Destigmatizing fucking nursing is absolutely something we should do within society. And when I'm talking about, basically telling kids that you'll put them into a fucking locker if they threaten a 60-year-old woman in front of you again, I'm more talking about the Coach Carter thing of discipline, where it's tough love. I'm going to give you a fucking opportunity, but if you step on the wrong side of me, I'm going to fuck you up. And that's what
how
boys
it
mean.
is.
Oh,
They've
boy.
hired
it's
more.
not.
They've hired more male
Butt
teachers
fuck
since you've been in
Louisiana,
high
that's
school,
how
my
it is.
dude.
Okay.
Maybe
They've
in
hired more
butt
male
fuck
teachers
Louisiana,
since you've been
but
in
not
high school.
anywhere
I
else.
promise you.
There's so
I
many.
promise you.
There's so many wrong
No.
things here, but okay. Let's go to Rose and then
No,
Doobie.
there's not.
All right, if we're doing anecdotes, I'm coming in here with the beautiful anecdotal example. Okay, I've been to 9 schools in my life. I am still in education. I've been from everything to private schools in Singapore to public schools in Sweden. Okay, I have a broad base of understanding here. So anybody who challenges me with their anecdotes are less valid. Okay, so on a few things here. So number one, obviously, we agree with you, Connor, that it is not okay for students to threaten other, teachers who are women within school. That is absolutely not acceptable and not something that should be tolerated. I think that what most people are finding an issue here is the prescription for the solution. And there's just like a wide range of ways, right? You identify the intersection of like the past issues that people are dealing with, of course. Then there's also the question of, okay, how much should we associate like disciplinary action directly with school staff, and how much should like educational institutions operate with other institutions, such as, for example, like youth centers or like the police departments instead, to try to like keep those two things separate. On top of that, there's also different ways by which students can garner respect. You seem to have talked mostly about like I suppose like an implicit like threat of physical action. Things like, for example, I can tell this from personal experience, teachers that are like really, like really disciplinary, really like on their toes at the time, like yell at students and stuff like that. Sure, they may keep some people in line, and a lot of people feel like, okay, I don't want to disappoint this person, I don't want to yell at them. But the person that the types of teachers that people feel much more bad about disappointing or offending or whatever are students that inspire respect through greatness, that inspire respect through illustrating that they care about their students, through being compassionate, through being understanding, and through all these different things that sort of build more of like a compassionate intrapersonal bond between a student and teacher, rather than one of like strong hierarchy and power. And then there is the thing again about, I suppose, the like sort of conflation between being aggressive necessarily and men in the what's called educational curriculum, which to some extent reinforces gender roles. However, if you're making it from more like a descriptive like points of view, then that's that's
No,
better. But if
no.
it's from a prescriptive thing, like this is how we solve the problem, more men will have more discipline, then that's sort of implicitly suggesting that we should encourage this type of like behavior from men, because that's how we're prescribing this, rather than, for example, prescribing like women to be more disciplinary. And that's
hold it. Doobie, go ahead first.
Actually, I agree with everything Rose said. Yeah, I think this idea that we need men in schools to, I guess, intimidate the children. And I say children, right? But I mean, a lot of these like teenagers who have bad home lives get into school, they're very upset, and they don't respect authority. And yeah, I've seen them myself. When I was growing up, saw a lot of teachers threatened by students, but I saw a lot of male teachers also threatened by students. So I don't think like necessarily having more men around is going to fix that problem. It seems like a home issue that we can address through other means. It seems
to be fair, I do think we should. Sorry.
Well, I think that to fix that problem, you need to deal with the home issues, and there are a ton of policies we can talk about to start doing that. I think that we're dealing with there's a symptom, and if we have an issue with students threatening teachers, maybe have school security guards or some shit. I don't think you necessarily need male teachers. I wouldn't want male teachers with no training on how to handle like an aggressive or angry person dealing with children.
Militarizing our academic institutions, do
wait, you're asking for teachers to fill a dual role of cop, though. You're trying to achieve the same outcome, but you're just like asking teachers to fill that role.
This is fundamentally like, you guys seriously, like this is the masculine input. Okay, when you're talking about gender abolition and you're talking about abolishing categories, but that does not mean that masculinity or aggression go away. This is like seriously, like when you talk about gender abolition, you talk like everybody is going to become fucking femboys or fucking women. No, masculine men are still going to exist. Aggressive men are still going to exist. Aggressive boys are still going to exist, even if you abolish these categories. Don't suddenly say I'm no longer a fucking man and the testosterone fucking shrivels out of my balls. This is fucking ridiculous, okay?
What the fuck are you talking about?
I don't think these are really related topics.
You literally have a trans-masculine person on the panel. Are you stupid?
Wait, say that again?
Yeah. You literally have a trans-masculine person on the panel, and you're gonna say that all trans people are women or fucking femboys. So why don't you go fuck yourself, is what I have to say to that.
Who said that? I said even
you
if
just said that, my dude.
People are gonna be what they are.
You just said that.
Okay, yeah, I just
Okay.
okay. So let's say that
Okay, we don't need to spin our wheels. We could probably get back on the topic of
Yeah.
education, right?
No, because this actually no, because basically
Okay.
the line of
Too
attack
far
that
gone.
everybody else had
You've been
was that
telling people to
Yeah.
fuck themselves this whole fucking panel, and I can't just tell you to fuck yourself and you move on. Move on. Supreme,
Oh.
what do you have to say?
Yeah.
I have
I'm not an expert in
questions.
pedagogy. I can
why
only
you're
speak
mad.
from my experience. I went to a bunch of schools as well. My education experience was like highly varied and like I think often goes against I guess what the statistics or what the data would suggest, like how education works. So like for me, the jury's out on the answers to a lot of this stuff because human psychology is a thing that we can't really spit out to ones and zeros and find, like find really concrete numbers and like come to really concrete prescriptions about. Like a system of flexibility is necessary. I just don't agree that teachers need to fill the dual role of like educator and like pro wrestler or
Oh,
something.
and
I think that's silly.
disciplinarian?
Yeah, even disciplinarian. I think that specialization is probably called for
How
in the
much
school.
discipline is an education?
Well, there are other people who can
yeah.
fill the role of disciplinarians that are not the actual like educator, the people that spend their 9 to 5 with these people.
So detached.
Yeah, school safety officers. I mean, we should have more
Yeah,
of
we had
those
like a
by
school
finishing
cop.
that
Yeah, I
was-
mean, one
that
of the
was
schools
the
I went to,
problem.
or two of the schools I went to, we had like school cops, and like
Oh,
we had
so
like a
when
school police
a
force.
kid is acting out, rather than an adult calling out on them and saying that their social behavior is unacceptable.
Well,
and
it
it's
is an
not
adult. We don't hire children to be school
call a
cops.
cop. That's
Wait.
what shuts
Well,
them.
it's a school
There's-
police
No,
liaison
so
officer.
No.
It's
Let's
There-
get
there's-
let's
Oh,
have
oh,
need to be a
Matt
It would
has
be
been
less
waiting for
attached
so
for me to
long.
advocate for a teacher to body slam a 15-year-old.
Yeah,
What?
Matt,
There's a
what's up?
difference
Hold on. Maddie's been waiting for so long.
I've been waiting for so long. All right. So I think we're complaining a few different things. So if the question is how can we reduce violence in our schools, there are tons of studies and data showing how school districts, especially those in low income areas, have been able to do that. And the way they're able to do that has nothing to do with the gender ratio of teachers. It has nothing to do with increasing a police presence on campus, and has everything to do with creating opportunity and compassion. I know you hate that word, but like for those students. So giving these students away, because a lot of times when you see a student that's acting violently in a school, it's not because that student's just inherently violent. That is almost every single time reflective of something that's going on in their personal life, whether they live in an abusive household or have experienced neglect or extreme poverty. Like that's what is causing that response. And so the way you deal with that is by like taking the student and treating them like a human being. It's not
Okay.
necessarily no, I'm not done. And then here's the thing. So I also think one of the ways that we can ensure a more equitable education system as a whole, and would be make sure that schools are funded properly, would be to no longer tie property taxes to the funding of public schools, because that is one of the biggest perpetuators of maintaining a hierarchy of achievement across even our public school system. So that was I wanted to say that a while back, and I know that the conversation is like gone off on a fascinating tangent since that point, but that's my point.
Okay, so this behavioral model of like just treat the kids with compassion and like try to inspire them and stuff. I think that's generally good advice in general, and that may produce better results on average. But some people just want to see the world burn, and some of those people are 13 years old. Like there needs to be some sort of fail-safe mechanism for the outliers, for the people that that solution is not going to work for, right?
So let's go to Rose, then Jack.
Yeah. I'm going to say a few things, maybe to clarify. I do agree with you, counterpoints, that we do need more gender balance within education. I just think the issue that myself and the other people are having is that I don't think that the reason for that should be because we need discipline. I guess if we follow this line of reasoning, I suppose the best way to reduce like these negative things in school would just be if we just force feminize all students. I mean, that might be the solution here after all. Who knows? But yeah, that was my little thing. Just like a bit of explanation there. I don't think most people are against having. At least I hope most people aren't against like balancing out genders within education. I think that's a good idea. I just don't think that the reason should be because discipline. But yeah.
Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, I like there's a huge gulf of difference between telling a student that something's unacceptable and threatening that student that you're going to body slam them into a locker. Like there's just such a patently big difference between those things, and I don't think the problem with American education is that like we don't have enough people telling kids that we're going to body slam, like an adult is going to body slam them into a locker. I think
Do you
that
think that's like the first thing that I'm advocating for?
it
Or the second,
seemed
or the third, or the
it
fifth, or the
it
10th?
it seemed like a large
You went on
portion
a-
of it, yeah.
Yeah, the hypothetical that I used was a student threatening to beat the shit out of a 60-year-old educator. Do you think
Yeah.
that person should be put in line, or do you think you should just go, "Oh, Timmy, that wasn't very nice"?
But your
Please-
explicit solution was to have
Yeah,
a
I think-
40-year-old
Are
man
those the only
threaten to
two
shove a kid into
Yeah,
a
options?
locker.
a fucking adult man say that
I-
shit's
I don't-
unacceptable. You do that shit
I-
again, I'm gonna fuck you up. Yeah,
I
Yeah,
don't
I
think-
don't, I don't think
think
that's something that should come from
surrounding-
the job description of teacher. Like,
That would
I don't-
escalate.
think
God.
Sorry,
That would
I don't
escalate,
think an
yeah.
approach to education is healthy if it relies on implicitly threatening the children.
everything relies
Mhm.
on. Okay.
Like
Maybe if gender
there's a thing called
abolitionists got their way
detention.
the way that Connor completely misunderstands it, then he thinks we all want everybody to turn into femboys. So then nobody
that
will
was
hit
my
anybody, right,
point.
Connor?
Joe, that was my point. Was that masculine people are still going to exist?
Baby, you said that gender abolitionists all think that that's not going to be the case, but despite gender abolitionists thinking that, there's still going to be manly men. I'm
Okay.
just picking with
Okay,
you, dude.
sure.
You're not like getting canceled or shit. Just
Okay,
calm down.
okay. So let's. Okay, I'm calm. Okay, so we agree fundamentally that eliminating categories does not eliminate the kinds of people that previously occupied those categories. We agree right there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, I feel like I'm in an antithetical position to you guys, and you are taking the most strawman-y fucking version of what I
Okay.
said.
Here's
maybe
the
I'm
best way to
hyperbolic,
demonstrate Johnny's point right
And
here.
I-
Connor,
okay, you go,
Connor,
you
real
go.
quick, Connor,
Sorry,
Connor,
that was
is
like
it
a
true? Is
third
it
of a
true that there are
point.
some
You
men that
go.
are not masculine? Is it true that there are some men that are not burly and wouldn't be able to contend with some 17-year-olds?
Sure, we're talking about on average. Jesus Christ. Are we talking like do we have to relitigate gender every time we have this conversation?
You brought it up.
Yeah, I
That's
brought
what
it
I'm
up
asking.
because so I have some gender essentialist fucking sympathies. Excuse me. Do you want to relitigate the entire fucking thing or do you want to hear my point? And on top of
My
that, do you
dude,
want me
nobody wants
bring
to
up
hear your
a
point.
pencil
Every point
or
you've
do you wanna
had has
hear my
been
point?
shitty.
What?
Every point you had, this whole fucking like topic has been weird, dude. It's been
Okay.
weird.
That's fine. I'm on a panel. I'm also a chud. I'm allowed to have chud opinions, and you're
Yeah,
allowed.
I'm
to
more
hate-
interested in contending with the ideas. I'm not here to assassinate character. I don't care. Like,
Okay.
I don't
all right,
give a
so let's-
shit.
Okay, so let's move on, and I'll try to articulate Steel Man so you guys can, deal with that before we leave. Okay. Jesus fucking Christ.
So
All right.
my whole point is I agree with you that there needs to be somebody filling the role of disciplinarian or at least some safeguard, if not for just the teacher's sake, because that is an issue that some students people that are from the age of like 12 to even 20 are like hormonal, you know what I mean? Like our emotions were all over the place. I mean, I remember that. And we're dealing with all this pressure. I mean, in retrospect, my life had the highest pressures in school, much higher than my professional life. And I was enlisted military. I had a, pretty high profile job. I had a lot of stresses, but nothing seemed more stressful to me than school growing up. And it was because of the social pressures, not so much of the academic pressures. The point is, I agree with you that there needs to be somebody to fill this role of disciplinarian to dissuade children and protect the teachers, right? And I also agree with the idea that you'll tend to win people over through inspiration and through like goodwill and shit like that. And I think it's probably a good idea to separate those roles so that the teacher is not like filling two roles and like harboring and inspiring distrust and scorn and spite from students that they end up having to discipline or something like that. The right tool for the right job.
So we probably agree on 70%. Okay. We just did. All right. But at the same time, you guys seem to want to divorce disciplinarian from academics. And I don't. I fundamentally don't. I think that basically part of the problem is we're pussyfooting around bad behavior. Now, we should eliminate all of the intersectional variables that cause kids to lash out. But guess what? I'll use anecdote Andy. I'll go with myself. I come from a middle-class household. I'm white. I'm cis. I'm normie. Some people find me attractive. Guess what? I was still an asshole. I was still an asshole to my teacher.
No.
hold on.
No.
You don't say.
Yeah, Maddie.
What? That's
told.
crazy.
Oh, that hurt.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
Stop hurting my feelings.
Honor,
I'm
please.
allowed to be sensitive, and you are hurting my feelings.
Exactly.
All right. So
I love
anyway,
you, Connor.
so the point being that what it took, you were enlisted military. What it took to get me in line were male role models who basically said, because I walked over everybody. I walked over every single person in my life. My parents, my role models, my teachers, my mentors. It didn't matter what was going on or who was reaching out to me trying to improve my life. I was just angry, probably because testosterone and probably because I was horny. But at the same time, what it took was a grown man walking up to me and saying, hey, listen, bud, that shit doesn't fly here. And if you step out of line, I'll fuck you up. And that's what it took for me. Okay. So maybe that's toxic or that's a fucking bad part of society or toxic masculinity or some kind of shit like that. But I'm saying this parts exists. And on top of that, exactly what happened to my mother, an educator, was she was dealing with toxic men such as myself who were threatening physical violence. And because there was a lack of disciplinarians and because schools are so conflict averse, they basically allowed aggressive, violent young men to threaten staff with impunity. And I would love to have a public
With impunity, really?
from a rough school come in and talk about discipline at the high school level, because I almost guarantee you they would agree with me 100%.
I have a really hard time believing that like kids could threaten teachers or even like conduct physical assault against them without being suspended or you know,
And
like
you're
detained
divorced from reality, my friend. You're completely divorced from reality.
I mean, I went to school in the same reality you did, and I went to a lot of
headache of
schools.
pissed off parents. They don't want the liability of disciplined children. They don't want the stink of disciplinarians disciplining schools. They would rather live in a world of shit than pick up a shovel. And I'm fucking sick of it.
You're playing
So,
anecdote,
can I-
Andy.
can
dude.
I-
Like you've
can
got
I
so
ask-
many other anecdotes
This is not
here.
no.
Can I-
Joe, this is bullshit. This is not anecdote, Andy. We could fucking talk for hours about how dog shit the American education system is, and you would agree with me on 90% of it. Why are you fighting me on discipline?
Well, can
Bro,
I
because
ask you,
you're
what are you?
repeating the
don't
same
think
thing
that's what's
over and
happening.
over again, and because you have so many other people who have had the complete opposite experience on this panel. I agree with you that we need more male role models in schools, my dude, but that doesn't mean that the male people who are already in schools aren't the disciplinarians. That's what happens in pretty much every school that most of these people on this panel have been talking about, except
Okay,
you.
how many
I'm
males do you have?
hold on. Let's really Jack talk.
I just wanted to know, like what are you comfortable with teachers being able to do to students? Are you comfortable with them being able to beat students? Like,
No.
is that like in
Okay, so
certain
there's actually-
circumstances, or are you
Yeah,
just
there's
okay with
actually
threatening?
there's actually a really interesting program. So basically there are disciplinarians who are trained in what are like restraints and holds. They have a higher degree of liability. They're specifically there for people who have mental, emotional, and drug crises. So no, they're not striking students in the face. They're not throwing them in the fucking ground. But if a student throws a punch at them, they can put them on the hold, put them on the ground, and wait for law enforcement to arrive. So yeah, I would be completely comfortable if a student threw a punch or threatened an administrator with a disciplinarian, somebody who is specifically trained in restraints and holds, safely like basically saying, hey, that behavior is unacceptable. And if that student continues to be violent, for the disciplinarian to basically say, hey, that's not going to happen. We're going to put you down on the ground, and we're
So
waiting
like
for
a
law
cop.
enforcement to arrive. I am completely
hold on.
comfortable with that.
Wait, but Connor, that doesn't need to be a teacher. That could be some kind of like security guard of the school. Well, I think
You guys,
that
you guys
I agree with
have to
that,
understand
right?
ratios, though. You know how many students are in a fucking school? It's like 3,000. Do you know how many school resource officers are required to be in a
that's a
school?
very large
3,000?
school.
One.
That's a very, very large school.
Yeah. So what you're asking for is more school resource officers, not necessarily more male teachers.
I don't even think there should be
Right.
that many school resource officers.
You just think
You're-
all the teachers need to be Bruce Lee.
I don't think we need to train teachers, and
Whoa.
we should be training teachers to like do MMA shit, right? Just have
Right.
some security guards at the school. If
guys
students get out of
are
line, they get
so-
dealt with. I
you're
don't see what the
so-
issue is.
You're so divorced.
Just put shock collars on students. Problem solved.
It would probably be easier.
Out
So,
shock
okay.
collar.
So
we-
okay,
so
all right,
Jack,
all right.
go ahead. Then we want to move on.
So I don't look. It has been fun memeing on Connor's position. I would 100% admit that. But I'm gonna say like I think that there are there are. I'm gonna go ahead and assume that teachers have been dealing with the possibility of violent students for literally as long as the teaching profession has been around. I'm gonna guess that there's probably some really good research out there, and we should probably be arguing based on the merits of research rather than just how we feel about the given topic.
Wow.
Sorry.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
I can do it in a closing.
Yeah. This went to an interesting direction. I think the subject.
No one saw that coming.
No,
Remember
no
when we were
one
talking
did.
about a school in Boston?
You're still all wrong.
I love you.
This
Yeah, I
is
was
the
bored until
magic.
Connor started talking about choking out kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, that,
And then you're like, and I'm back. And I'm
I mean,
back.
to be fair, he was talking about the implicit threat, not necessarily them actually
Yeah,
doing it.
I'm
gonna.
joking, I'm
Okay,
joking.
yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
So this is the magic of my panels. You should definitely come back for the Reverie, guys. Especially since Connor's a fixture here. These moments happen all the time. But okay, to my audience. So what I'm going to do is we're going to close this up. We're going to give everyone an outro, give them a chance to do a closing statement. But the stream was not ending. The stream was not ending. Oh God. Stream's not ending. We're going to go into our open welcome panel right after this, where audience members like you, yes, you, sitting at home, may be involved. We'd love to have you. But first, let's give these guys an out. We'll start with Johnny. Johnny, final words on all of this, and I don't know. You can also outro, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, dude. School is hard. Kids need more support. Kids need standardized K through 12. If not that, then at least pre-K. Yeah, we need to be able to support parents and actually have them send their kids to school somewhere safe and allow them to go to work if they need to. Also, my name is Johnny. I go by Johnny Scarlett with 2 T's at the end here on Twitch. I would love it if you would come by on Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 10 a.m. We have an international audience, and I talk about math, science, philosophy, art, and whatever the hell else I want. It was great having you guys, and I am super happy to be on Prime's panels. They're always fun.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Johnny. Really, we always appreciate Johnny being here. Johnny, a regular on the Amazon Lily, and we're happy that they have decided to join this one as well. You got so much to the group. Thanks so much. Next. And Johnny's link is in chat. And if you guys have any other link other than your Twitch links you want people to follow you back, feel free to throw it in my Twitch chat. Okay. Next, we have Riverboat Jack, who is an MVP, I think, on this channel. Riverboat Jack, I'm always so happy to have you around. Any last words on this?
Yeah, we should just get rid of private schools, have all public schooling, equitably fund those schools. And I think that would take care of the vast majority of problems when it comes to unequal access to education among both minorities and also economic classes. So we should be doing that. It's cringe to have charter schools. It's cringe to have arbitrary barriers that only the wealthy can overcome. And frankly, we should get rid of those cringy things.
Okay, and outro?
Oh, my name is Riverboat Jack. You can find me over on twitch.tv/riverboatjack, where I talk about socialism, making the world a better place, and generally trying to, have right opinions about things, and laugh at bad opinions. So check me out there. Same name over on twitter.com.
All right. Next, I'll give you a bit of a moment, but not too long. Connor, you can give a closing statement on this.
All right. So here's the thing. I don't mind focusing on points of agreement. We actually agree on probably all of the intersectional stuff. So basically, universal high quality education, universal pre-K, universal secondary education, all that kind of stuff. We agree on all of this. I'm going to stick to my tier system, but you guys can, rip it apart if you're egalitarian. So basically, what I think I'm offering, this is not, okay, this is anecdotes, but it comes anecdotes from experience. I actually did work in the schools as a school resource officer, and I will tell you why a cop should not be the person being the disciplinarian, okay? So basically, there are people, teachers, who are capable of filling this disciplinarian role. They absolutely should. They should put them in. They should put students in holds. You know why? Because it's fundamentally less traumatizing than having a 6'4", 250-pound person in a uniform carrying a gun come up to you and slam you to the ground and throw you in handcuffs and threaten you with incarceration. Okay? So basically, outsourcing this to security guards or outsourcing this to cops is a failure. It's a failure of our society to instill academics and discipline into our kids. So for leftists to tell me call security guards or call cops is so fucking weird. I'm about to goddamn lose it. Okay? No, I've had to do that. And by the way, I worked in middle school. Okay, so everything was fairly chill. Even at my nice middle school, I still had a 10-year-old try to stab a teacher with a wooden stake. I still had another kid threaten to shoot up the school. These interventions need to be done by disciplinarians and academics, not cops. Okay, cops can be there. Cops serve a role. Cops should be part of the community. But to outsource all of your security and all of your discipline to armed brutes, because I was an armed brute, is nonsensical and frankly weird to be hearing from leftists. That being said, my name is Connor. I run a YouTube channel named Counterpoints. The easiest way to find me is to go onto YouTube and type in Counterpoints common spelling. If you can't spell it, then that's okay. You can just go to Contra. And then if you also want to follow me, jump onto Twitter. Type in Connorpoints, CONORPOINTS, CONORPOINTS. I will not be linking my channel in chat. And if you are too lazy to come and find me, then you can go fuck yourself.
All right, thank you so much. Wow, you're just a wonderful, fun guy at times like this. No, in general, so seriously, we do love Connor. Connor is an absolute welcome individual here. He does add a lot to our panels, especially that sense of like impending doom, because any second that he one day will drop dead here from our stupid leftist takes.
It will be an honor to die on your panel.
Thank you. Where else would you lay your life down?
I'll make it a gentle death, okay?
Where else?
I doubt that.
Where else would you lay your life down other than the battlefield of ideas, right? Like it doesn't.
True.
Well, thank you so much. All right, next we have a new addition to the panel who we're happy to have here. Made once again a very big splash. Thank you for being here, Rose Wrist. I think everyone has become a fan of yours after all this. So Rose Wrist, if you have final words on this, great. Also an outro.
Yeah, I'll have some final things here. So to some extent I agree with what Counterpoint said. I just want to really fine pick this. So the things that I have most contention with what Connor said here was that number one, the association between gender and discipline. Number two, the sort of expectation that all schools will require this to take place at some point. Maybe that's how American schools are. I don't know. That's possible. I haven't seen any evidence suggesting it. It feels like I would be aware of this, but hey, I might be wrong. Maybe not. I do think that I do see the argument that you were laying forth about possible issues with an external element or an external force coming in and enforcing that, to which, yeah, that's a good point. So I think generally the best way to probably handle this would be if there are cases where such actions need to be employed on a regular basis or on a basis enough to warrant this type of training, I believe that the school and the representatives should work with local institutions to ensure that the people, that there is enough staff and there are enough resources and there's enough knowledge to be able to deal with these issues on a case-by-case basis. That's generally, I think, where I've ended up in the end of this. Now, for the overall discussion about public schools, by virtue of living in Sweden, I am a public school extremist. Fuck private schools, fuck private charter schools, no school choice, that's cringe as fuck. Get rid of all those. We don't want them. That's my general case, statement on education from there. Now, that's my closing statements for that. Now for my outro. If you enjoyed this, if you enjoyed the rhetoric, the academic backing, the facts and logic, and the shitting on counterpoints for his disgusting American heritage, feel free to check me out on any of my platforms. The best way to probably find all of my links is a handy little website I have that is roserist.com. It's really simple. ROSEWRIST.com. Links to all my stuff there. I do all types of things, debates, cover politics, upload daily when I'm not streaming. to my YouTube channel, which is also under the name of Roserist. One of the significant things I did recently and that I'm working on is I'm trying to delete the Swedish Skeptosphere because it's been allowed to run unchecked for way too long. Recently, I went after Angry Foreigner, who is a pretty major YouTuber here in Sweden, 230k something subscribers. And I had an exchange with him, and it was probably one of the most pathetic exchanges I've ever seen from any political commentator ever. These people have been allowed to run unchecked for far too long. I recommend you check out my video on it and maybe, put some more pressure on that, because it would be incredible for him to undodge the debate and have a conversation with me. That'd be phenomenal. But yeah, finally, Roserist, that's my name, roserist.com. That's a link to all my socials. And yeah, thank you very, very, very much for having me on here, Prime Case. I really appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. Seriously, this has been very good. We definitely need to have you back for fucking everything, honestly. But we are very happy to have you. Okay, moving on. Our Dark Lord, Doobie. I think you pull our emotions back and forth, Doobie. I mean, first you're expel all the kids, but also treat them nicely within our school system. You've got an interesting ideology, fascinating one. But Doobie, we appreciate you nonetheless. Any final words and an outro?
Yeah, I mean, I guess on the kids thing. So yeah, fuck the kids coming to the border. I don't care about them. What I do care about, right, is kids in the United States, right? American kids, our citizens. I am a very compassionate person. I love my people, apparently more than you guys do. So to call me not compassionate, so I think I'm just selective with my compassion, I guess. That being said, don't choke out kids. So Connor, just to be clear, what I think maybe was misunderstood is I'm not saying that police officers should be in schools. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think kids should be catching charges for acting up. But I do think that you should maybe have a security guard in there or something, someone that knows how to handle people that are acting, people that are aggressive. They can calm these kids down, hold them, and then have a school guidance counselor come and talk to them and work with them. So if you guys want to find me, you guys can find me at the Politics Discord server, the greatest server on Discord, politics.gg or discord.gg/politics. Yeah, Doobie, hope to see you there.
All right, exclamation point Doobie in chat to find his server. So check it out. Be warned. But again, Doobie, always appreciate it. All right, next, Maddie. I love when you come with a fire. And I think this is the most fiery I've ever seen you. And Connor has the magic to bring that out of people.
He's truly my muse. So yeah, no, I adore Connor, even though I said in chat, I'm we don't agree on a whole lot, but I love being in debates with him. So it's always great, and it makes for fantastic entertainment, I'm sure. So yeah, hi, I'm Maddie. To close out the last subject or topic, I think the best thing we can do to create more equity in public education is, of course, as everyone said, most everyone, getting rid of private schools, not tying school funding to property taxes, and providing equal opportunity for kids to go into more higher achieving classes. Because what the data shows is that kids who are not high test scores actually tend to do a lot better when they are given those opportunities. So equal opportunity, whatever. And I'm Maddie. You can find me on Twitch at MaddieCakes_. You can find me on Twitter at Madsmaru, MADSMARU. And I'm frequently on panels. I also will do streams on different political or economic issues. And I'd love for you to check it out. You're always welcome. Prime, this was so much fun. I always love being on your panels. And if everyone who's watching this has not yet subscribed to Prime, you should do that.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Okay, yeah. We'll put Maddie's link in the chat. Also, now, last but not least, we have Wicked Supreme. Supreme, who is a rare sight on this channel, but always a welcome sight on this channel. Supreme, thank you for coming on, sharing your time, and getting fired up as well. Supreme, you have last words
Did
on
I?
this? I don't know. You're a little.
Maybe for me?
Yeah, for you. Your version
Okay.
of getting fired up.
Sure, I'm Supreme, okay? You can find me at twitch.tv/Wicked Supreme. I came here to wage war against the cartoons, and I single-handedly thwarted half of them. That's right. I murdered Eris. She's dead. She's never coming back. But King Doobie would escape unscathed again, like Hitler jumping through the window. You can never catch him. Okay, that's me. Come see my stream. It's a fucking great time, okay? 10 p.m. PST to 2 a.m. PST, Monday through Thursday. We explore the world, we learn a thing or two, and we crack a lot of jokes, okay? Often at other people's expense. Come check it out. Shut up!
All right. Maybe there he will properly flagellate himself for being.
Oh,
born
in
male.
Minecraft. Eris is dead in Minecraft. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So this has been really great, actually. This has been a really fun panel. We only got through 2 topics because I think we had some really good discussions here and strange ones. But we'll continue it again next week. Now we're going on to our open walk-on panel. I would love if any of you would join, especially you, Jack, because we have someone who's challenging us on our private school take. GSU Gambit.
okay.
Yeah. He's got words for you. So of course, any of you are welcome to join, but if not, thank you for spending your time, your energy, your passion, your knowledge with my audience. I know they appreciate it just as much as I do. Have a good one.